All right, you can begin.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Representative Michael Vose, and as chair of the House Science, Technology, and Energy Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with House Rule 67 and the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-4, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. This is a committee orientation meeting. Please note that there is no physical location for members of the public to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that all members of the committee and select legislative staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the Zoom electronic meeting platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting by the Zoom platform or by telephone. All necessary access information has been available in the House calendar and through the electronic calendar on the General Court website. Notice for this meeting complies with House rules and RSA 91-A. Anyone who has a problem accessing the meeting should call 271-3600 or email hcs@ledge.state.nh.us. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. I want to introduce the staff that are on the meeting assisting us, Jennifer Four, our committee researcher. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. And we will start the meeting as we did our last meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. So Representative Murner, as our acting clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, good morning, everybody. I may have to leave during this meeting. I am right now in the surgery unit at Dartmouth Hitchcock Hospital. My wife's in having surgery for the next 4 hours, so if I get paged, I'll have to leave, but I'm just praying she's going to be fine. Okay.
We all wish you the very best.
Representative Thomas.
Present here, alone in this room, by myself, nobody else.
Representative Bresney.
Present and alone.
Representative Myrna, present. Representative Bernard.
Bernardi, here, alone.
Sorry, get you wrong again. Representative Chambrils.
Present and alone.
Representative Harrington. Representative Harrington. Oh. Representative Plazas. Representative Nodder.
I'm here and I'm alone at the moment, but my husband and son will be back soon.
Representative Homola.
I am present. I am currently alone in a room, but everybody in my family is home, so somebody will walk through this room at some point.
Representative White.
I am here and I'm alone.
Representative Somsich.
Yes, I'm here in Portsmouth in my house, but my wife is also in the house somewhere, so she could be here anytime.
Representative Callie Pitts. Representative Callie Pitts.
Here at home alone.
Oh, there you are.
And you won't ask me to speak again.
Sorry. Representative Chittenden.
Stop laughing.
I think that's Chrétien.
Chrétien. Representative
Yes.
Chrétien.
Sorry, yes,
I'm
that
reading off a
is
piece
me.
of paper. I'm sorry, excuse me. I wrote down things on a piece of paper because I was at the hospital and I couldn't access it because it's on my pad.
Yes, Representative Cretan, I am here. I am alone except for my dog, but I don't think she
I'll
has
get
much
that
of it.
right in the next couple of weeks.
No worries. I hope your wife does well.
Representative Mann. Representative Mann. Representative McGee.
Yes, I'm here and I'm alone.
Representative McWilliams.
I'm here with hubby and 3 kids.
Representative Oxenham.
Present with members of the family who might pass through during the time. Troy, is it possible for someone to substitute for you after this roll call is over? I could do it from home, I'm sure, more easily than you can from the hospital.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on. They don't feel she'll be out of surgery much before 1 p.m. before the doctor will see me. So this will give me something to do.
Okay. Understood.
Representative Paschal.
Present, and I have a couple of workmen in the house. But out in the
Representative
road.
Pimentel.
I'm present in a room by myself, likely to stay that way.
Representative Vincent.
Yes, I'm here at my house in Somersworth. I am in a room alone, but my wife is in another part of the house. Thank you.
Nice to see you, Ken. Happy to see you. And the chair, Representative Vose.
Yes, I am present. I am alone at the moment. I'm in a medical facility and I may have to be called away from time to time over the course of the next 2 or 3 hours. And if I am, I'll signal that by turning off my video, and Representative Thomas will take over at that point.
Yeah, I took, before we started, I took clerk, we did clerk training the other day because obviously this is going to be a unique situation with some of the votes. People will be away from home, saying whether they're home alone or in the room. And basically what the clerk told me that I asked the question, it's if you have, like, say you and Representative Thomas were in the same room together, that's the only time if there's another rep in the room when we're taking executive votes. So we have to ask that question anyways, whether or not you're there or alone, but that's the preview of it.
So Representative Harrington is here.
I just saw his name pop up on my screen.
Yeah, he's attending via phone, and he apparently doesn't know how to unmute himself. As I recall, on the phone, you unmute yourself with *6. Is that correct, jen?
There's
*6. So Representative Harrington, try *6 and give us a hello.
I just saw Fred
Representative
come on my
Plett, good
screen.
morning. Good to see you.
Fred Plett is here for 25 minutes before I go to therapy.
Wonderful
Hey,
to see
Fred.
you.
It's a long time for your therapy, Fred.
Yeah, I'll be out of here on the 28th home, so I'll be able to join our first session by Zoom.
Great.
We will take that day by day.
Awesome.
Wonderful news, Representative Plett. Representative Harrington, did you succeed in unmuting yourself?
Or it may be terrible news, who knows?
We're ready for the puns, Fred.
That's why he's going to therapy.
So Jen, is there any way we can unmute Representative Harrington?
It appears that he is unmuted. I don't see the
the mute symbol.
I'm on a Zoom meeting with the State House on my pad.
Gonna mute Representative Murder.
I think Representative Harrington's calling in as well, because he doesn't have that capability as computer, and he's got to unmute his phone by *6.
Yeah, it looks like it's unmuted, so it's possible that he is not connected and his tile is just still there. I'm not sure. I could try to reach out to him over the phone and kind of troubleshoot with him if you'd like me to. But the problem isn't that he's
Or
muted.
next Friday, because Representative Harrington doesn't have good internet connectivity where he lives. So he's probably going to be calling in via phone more often than not. And he's going to want to participate in all of our public hearings, certainly. So we're going to need to figure this out.
All
Maybe
right.
we'll try on the side with him with a special meeting just to see if it works.
Yeah, I'll try to give him a call and see what his situation is and if he has any questions. He should be able to connect by phone pretty easily, but I can kind of run through things with him and see if he has issues that we can pin down. But like I said, he may be disconnected and this is just kind of not catching up.
Okay, I'm getting a text message from. He says he has hit *6, and you must unmute me as well. But I don't see any facility here for us to.
No, and on our end, so is he hearing us? By any chance, could you ask it? Is the last 3 digits of his number, is it 691?
I think I've heard *4 on some phones.
$694, you said?
691.
691.
I'm just seeing that number in our attendee list. And it could be possible if he was stuck on the attendee side that he's hearing everything, but he can't speak.
Maybe it's different on a rotary dial.
That presents challenges.
I used to have the crank phone.
So he's responding to me now. Let me quickly, while we're waiting for that to happen, let me quickly go over the agenda for today. That's his home number. His
691.
home number ends in 691.
All right, let me just try this really quickly then.
And did he call in with a special invitation?
Representative Harrington, are you unmuted?
Hello?
Can you talk to us now? There you are.
Yeah, okay. You had to do, just so it's clear, I can't unmute myself. It's a two-part system. You have to do it and I have to do it. But if you don't do it, I don't get trouble.
I apologize, Representative Harrington. We thought that you were connected with the committee because there's a tile with your name on it.
Yeah.
But you ended up on the attendee side. So we're clear now.
I'm watching it, but I don't have a camera.
Wow.
And I don't have audio back and forth. So I'm on the phone for the audio, okay?
Okay, clear. Thank you.
All right. Sure, thanks a lot.
Okay, so we got that problem straightened out, and hopefully next Friday, when we have our first full committee public hearing session, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning, we'll have all these Zoom issues worked out, I hope. I'm sure we'll run into others, but we'll work them out as we come across them. So there is some additional news about Zoom that happened this week. The House staff organized and put together a replacement, an online replacement for the pink card and blue sheet system that we've always used to sign people up for public hearings. It's live, it's on the general court website, and it works pretty well by all appearances. And I'm going to ask Jen to give us a demonstration of that system. And I see that Representative Callie Pitts has her hand raised. Can your question wait until after we see the demo, or do you need to ask?
I just wanted to clarify the date. We're meeting on the 12th or the 11th?
We're meeting on January 29th, Friday,
Yeah.
January 29th.
January 29th for the
January.
first hearing?
January 29th, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Jen is going to give us now a walkthrough of this new system, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions afterwards, probably. And then at 10:30, we're going to turn the meeting over to the Public Utilities Commission. They're going to do a presentation that'll last somewhere between an hour and 15 minutes. And then after that presentation is over, we're going to have a presentation by the the 3 regulated utilities and the New Hampshire Electric Co-op. And that will be the agenda for today's meeting. So I'm going to turn it over now to Jen for a demo of the new public hearing registration system. Take it away, Jen.
All right, does everybody see the homepage of the general court? Okay, so this is where we begin, and you want to navigate down to this gray box that says links to remote meetings. House remote testimony directions is where you want to head. I apologize if you guys can hear my pugs snoring in the background. It's a little distracting to me right now. So this is detailed instructions of how to offer your testimony, whether written or, the blue sheet style. So you might want to take a look at that in the future. Obviously, I'm not going to read all of this for you, but it gives instructions about raising your hand, how to testify on Zoom. It also has a link here to access the YouTube channel in case you're someone who simply wants to view the hearings. This link here takes you to what I call the testimony portal, New Hampshire House remote sign-in sheet. So you start here at the calendar. So I thought we could use the first hearings for ST&E as the example on the 29th. So you select the 29th, and this drop-down box shows all of the committees that will be having hearings that day. And we can come here and select Science, Technology, and Energy. Choose a bill. We'll just pick the first one. I am a member of the public. You would choose that you're an elected official. Representing myself. If I were representing an organization, I could insert that organization's name there. As a nonpartisan staffer, I'll choose that I'm neutral on the bill. And you can choose whether you wish to speak on the bill. This would create, the pink card version. If you don't want to speak on the bill, then you would just leave that blank, and it would be like you're offering the blue sheet. So we can check that. And then you can see at the bottom here, it gives you kind of a summary of all the things that you've selected so far, in case you want to change anything. The next page has your personal information, first, last name, phone, and email address. And then you have an opportunity to verify that information on the final page. Representative votes, when you get the readout, you'll know that I don't really want to testify on this bill. And then finally, it tells you, thank you for registering to testify at 2:00 on HB 264. Please email written testimony and documents you wish to share with the committee to House Science, Technology, and Energy at ledge.state.nh.us. So anyone who has written documents to submit, they will use that email address. and compose an email that will go to everyone on the committee plus the committee assistant. And then finally, tech help numbers are listed at the bottom. And then you can go back to the start. So I'll stop the share, and then if anybody has questions, I'm happy to take them. Representative Oxenham?
Will sponsors and co-sponsors be required to provide written testimony 24 hours in advance also?
Yes,
I mean,
we're going to require written testimony from everyone. I know we won't get it from everyone, but we're going to ask everyone to submit written testimony. And one of the reasons written testimony is going to be so critical is because if we schedule an hour for a public hearing and there aren't enough minutes in that hour to accommodate everybody who wants to speak, their written testimony will substitute for their inability to submit verbal testimony. So that's why we're going to encourage it of everyone.
And it'll show us.
Clarification.
All right, Representative McGee.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a question. It's more logistical. It sounds like if folks submit written testimony online that we'll each get that as a blast in email. So we'll just have to keep track of that in advance of our hearing days. But how will the compilation of who's testifying at the hearing come in? How is that going to be ordered and scheduled and all that stuff? I mean, once you have the sponsor speak, is there going to be a printout that goes to you to know for each hearing who's coming up for testimony? Or because usually you do it with the cards, but I'm just curious, when will you know how many people are scheduled to testify? Because that would affect how long the hearings would be scheduled for, wouldn't it? It's like a cart before the horse kind of thing. Wouldn't that give us an indication of maybe how long a hearing would require?
Jen?
I believe it's about 30 minutes before the hearing that we are planning on producing that list of speakers who have registered so far. Yep. So that'll give, like you said, the chair an opportunity to see how much interest there is and help him understand how much time to limit each speaker to.
So is it going to be a hard and fast rule that someone can't just come at the last minute and get their name on the list?
No.
Because you had said that before, but I'm just curious that that's the case.
I think that will be within the chair's discretion.
Well, the way the system that Jen just demonstrated works is that if you register before 30 minutes before the hearing starts, then we'll be notified. But if you register after or less than 30 minutes before the hearing starts, we won't get notified. Now, if you're an attendee and you request to testify, because at the end of the testimony, I will ask, is there anyone else who would like to testify? And if someone who is an attendee raises their hands and says, I would like to testify, then we will promote them to be able to do so if we have time. If we don't, we'll suggest that they submit a written, some written testimony. But we'll try to accommodate as many people as we can. And you're right, Representative McGee, if during the sign-up period on a given bill, if we get a number of people signing up to testify that indicates that 1 hour isn't going to be enough, then we may have to make adjustments to the length of the hearing as before we conduct it. So we'll have to play that by ear.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead,
Pat?
Representative Thomas.
Yes, thank you. I just want to reiterate what Chairman Vose said last week, that the timing allowed for the speakers is so critical this year. And I know that people who have been on the committee before know that we have perennial visitors that speak that love to speak. And so it's very critical that every member gets the word out to their supporters or people that they know that they must just stick to the basic facts of the bill and dispense with verbiose, historical data, and rhetorical information that just takes up time but doesn't add to the bill. That could be put into their written testimony. So we ask people to please reiterate that the timing is critical and to stick with their main point or a couple of main points that they need to highlight in their written testimony. Otherwise, we're not going to get through our time and it's going to create a lot of problems. So we ask that you get this information out, and for anyone who's listening to please do the same. Thank you.
We have to always keep in mind that we are going to be restricted to one public hearing day per week. We almost lost our day for next week because we are scheduled normally to have our meetings on Mondays, but there wasn't enough time to notice a meeting properly in the calendar for next Monday. So the speaker was gracious enough to juggle the schedule a little bit to allow us to have a Friday next week. Otherwise, we would have missed next week altogether, which would have put us potentially behind schedule already. So we're lucky to be able to meet next Friday. And hopefully with that and our 1 week a day schedule starting Monday, February 1st, we'll be able to get through all these bills before the deadlines of March 11th. So are there any further questions about the pink card, blue sheet registration process and the sign up for bills? Are there any general questions about our process going forward? Because we're going to get started a week from today. If there's anything you need to know about how we're going to do what we're going to do, either ask it now or get in touch with me offline sometime between now and next Friday, and we'll try to get all your questions answered so that we can get started next Friday right on time.
There's a question from the attendees.
Oh, Ken, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a question. I've heard from a couple members that we may choose to, and just a clarification, we may choose to be on Zoom or we may go to the legislative office building. Is that true? You just muted yourself. You're still on mute.
Yep. Yes, that is true. Then we're restricted to 1 day a week is because we're going to use the legislative office building for public hearings for committee.
Mondays, correct?
Ours is going to be Monday. Okay. But the reason we're limited so much is because we're only able to have 2 committees meeting on each floor per day.
All right.
So that's only 4 committees in the legislative office building per day. So that means you can't meet more than once a week in order for all the committees to get a day.
I was just questioning. I have got the series of shots, so I am fortunate. Not that it makes me invincible, but I just thank you for that information.
You're welcome. Thank you. Representative Kelly Fitz, don't
Yes.
forget to mute yourself. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering about, we still have the same committee room, 302, and do we have a committee phone number?
No, we're actually meeting in 202, 203. So we'll be on the 2nd floor instead of on the 3rd floor where we have been in previous years. I don't know if that's a permanent assignment or a temporary assignment. I'm not sure, but that's where our first meeting is. Jen, do you know anything about that?
I'm not sure if the rooms are going to necessarily stay the same all the time or not. it is my understanding that when you check in with security, when you arrive, if you choose to come in person, that there should be a list there that will let you know which room to go to on that day.
My follow-up is because I wanted to buy business cards, order business cards, don't know which room to put and don't know which contact at the State House phone number to use.
With due apologies, I raised my hand. I've got to leave for physical therapy, and due apologies to the PUC. Bye, and thank you for the cards and prayers.
Good luck with
Thanks, Fred.
your,
Good luck.
your therapy. Great
luck,
to see you,
Fred.
Fred. Okay.
Did you get the rest of the question?
No, I didn't. Fred interrupted. Please repeat it.
Well, it was just because I'm looking to buy new business cards and don't have a room number or a State House contact number. And that I think is kind of important.
Okay, I'll ask the speaker's office what we should do about that and get you.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I would imagine this whole setup is expected to go away for the second year of our session. And so I'm sure that when that happens, we would go back to our normal room number. So you can verify that, but I would suspect that if you're going to have cards made up, I would stick to our normally assigned room number when we all can go back into that building anyway.
Okay. Representative J.D. Bernardi, and are you going to be around for this entire session? Because I'd like to get us started with our presentations out of fairness to the presenters. So if you could hold your question till afterwards.
It goes to the question about the room number and the phone number. If you look on the, if you look in the list of committees where it specifies who the members are, in that designation there for every committee, it lists our room number is 304 and our phone number is 271-3369. So I think that's what's been assigned.
Yes, I'll get verification on that. And I appreciate you looking that up. I appreciate that. So for the purpose of ordering business cards, we may continue to use the old room number, but I'll get verification of that. So let's move on now and turn the program over to the Public Utilities Commission. I don't have the list right in front of me. I'm not sure who the first speaker is, but whoever that might be, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. So please take it away.
I've promoted Mr. Shulock. And Mr. Shulock, just let us know which members you'd like to join you, or if you'd like me to move everyone in. Mr. Shulock, you are live with the committee.
Good morning. This is David Shulock. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. It took me a second to figure it out. And I think we may present you with one of your first technological challenges, because we would like to put up a PowerPoint. And there should be somebody online by the name of Corinne LeMay.
Okay.
Who would want to control the PowerPoint, and then if it's possible to still see us speak, that would be great.
Okay, I've just promoted Corinne. Is there anyone else from the PUC that you'd like me to promote at this time, Mr. Shulock?
Do you want to promote them all at once or as we go?
It's up to you, whatever you think is best.
Why don't we promote everybody, and that way when I introduce them, they can wave their hand so that you can see who they are.
Okay,
So,
and Corinne is live now. I have given you permission to share your screen, so you should be good to go.
So while she's doing that, My name is David Shulock, for those of you who don't know me, and some of you may not recognize me because I grew a COVID beard. I'm the general counsel at the Public Utilities Commission, and one of the features of my position is that along with my assistant, Michelle Bunnemeyer, I coordinate the Commission's legislative support efforts. So I'm a point of primary contact for all of you if you have questions about how a bill operates or what the Commission's position on a bill might be. You should always feel comfortable contacting me. Sometimes, and actually you should probably contact me first if you need to talk to someone at the PUC about a bill that you're working on. I may be able to answer the question for you right off the bat, and I promise I will not act as a roadblock. I will make sure that you're put in touch with the person or the team at the PUC that can help you. Most often, the person that you really will want to speak with will be one of the people who are presenting today. I have some contact information on one of the slides for three of us. But if you find yourself working on a bill with a particular person who's come to testify, you should also feel free to call them directly. So we've put together a presentation for you today. I call it the tip of the iceberg presentation. Our Chairwoman, Diane Martin, will give you a brief overview of the PUC's jurisdiction and the types of things that we work on. Commissioner Bailey, who also serves as the state's NESCO manager, will give an overview of regional electricity issues. And then 5 of our directors will talk to you about the areas where they're sort of responsible. And so if I can well, I don't see other people to be able to introduce them. So why don't we go ahead and move on to our first presenter, who is Diane Martin, our chairwoman.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Good morning, Chairman Bowes, members of the committee. My name is Diane Martin, and I serve as the chairwoman of the Public Utilities Commission. In addition, I also serve as the chairwoman of the Site Evaluation Committee, and I have recently been elected to serve as the chair of the Nuclear Decommissioning Financing Committee when Treasurer Bill Dwyer retired. It has been a busy year at the PUC. I fill the role on the commission as the practicing attorney who has to be admitted to the New Hampshire bar. I don't know many of you from my prior work. And for those of you who don't know me, before joining the commission, I had the honor of serving as Associate Attorney General and Chief of Staff at the Department of Justice. During my years there, I served as a litigator and an advisor to nearly every state agency. I'm also a mother of 4 children, and I have a farm in Deerfield, New Hampshire, where I usually start my day pretty early in the morning feeding cows, chickens, and horses. And in the summer, you'll find me driving my tractor, haying my fields. I do want to preface my remarks today about the commission work by reminding everyone that the commission and its staff is required by law to abstain from public comment about matters pending before the commission. We'll do our best to answer any questions you have, and we will rely on our counsel to jump in and keep us on track if we're heading in the wrong direction. Okay, so if we go to the slides and start with the org chart, you'll see that the commission, Corinne, can you go to the org chart? There we go. All right, thank you. You'll see that the chair of the commission has a dual role. So it is part of the 3-member commission. That is the regulatory body. It is also the agency head for the agency that supports the work of that body. So what do we do at the commission? The mission gives you a really good idea of what our responsibilities are. And the mission of the commission is a very important one. It involves making sure that we all have the electricity, gas, water, and sewer that we need, and that it's provided to us in a safe manner that we can rely on. And importantly, that it comes at a price that's just and reasonable. The commission also has a very important role as arbiter between the interests of the public who purchase the services, also known as the ratepayers or customers, and the businesses who provide those utility services to us. It sounds simple, but it's not. It's an incredibly complex challenge trying to serve as the arbiter of those two interests. Importantly, we make sure that the voice of the ratepayer is always heard. I want to spend a few moments recognizing the amount of work done by the commission and its staff. Before joining the Public Utilities Commission, I did not appreciate the amount of work that is done at the commission, and I think most members of the public really have no idea how much goes on there. So if we can turn to the slides. Yes, there we go. So dockets. For fiscal year 20, we opened 181 dockets in the various utility subject matter, from electric to sustainable, natural gas, water and sewer, telecommunications, and other. So that's 180 dockets that actually had to be opened for decision-making purposes. Out of those, we had a number of orders that were issued. I apologize, I'm trying to catch up with your slides. There we go. Total in fiscal year 20 of 112. I think that's one of the things I really did not understand was the volume of decisions coming out of the commission and the amount of work that it takes to get to that point. There's all of the preliminary work done to investigate, gather information that staff puts in hours and hours and hours to work on. And then there are the public hearings, public comments, and finally the decision-making process, all of which culminates in an order being issued. It's a significant amount of work. Another point that I think people don't realize is that the commission provides customer service to so many of the residents of the state of New Hampshire. If you look at the slide on inquiries made to the consumer division, there were nearly 5,000 inquiries during fiscal year 20. And those require some member of the staff to take a call, answer questions, perhaps get back to them several times. So there's a lot of work involved with all of that. To accomplish all of this work, the commission has 73 full-time positions, and a number of those are vacant at this point in time. That work has been made even more challenging by the COVID pandemic. Just 3 short months after I joined the PUC, the pandemic began. The commission has worked really hard to serve the public without interruption despite the pandemic. We've made several changes to make that possible, including providing web-enabled remote hearings, technical sessions, and meetings, just like you're doing here today. That way, members of the public can still participate, even if they are not able to come out because of the pandemic. We suspended rules so that filing of paper copies doesn't have to be done, so that you can do everything electronically. And that helps to keep things running without people needing to come to the commission. And we've waived paper application requirements for certain programs so that members of the public who are applying can submit those applications electronically. We also updated our webpage so that it directs members of the public to whatever information they're looking for related to what we're doing during COVID. And finally, and probably most importantly, we have opened a number of investigations to gather information from the utilities, from members of the public, from the businesses that have been impacted, so that we can have a better understanding of how the pandemic is actually impacting all of those folks and use that for our work. In conclusion, I really want to point out that the amount of work that the staff at the commission does. The work in accomplishing the mission of the commission is incredibly important. It's broad and it's varied. It covers a wide range of topics, from energy efficiency to rate making, The commission handles cases that run the gamut from a simple half-hour public meeting to cases that go on for days, involve very significant legal issues that are very, very important to the people of this state. Importantly, as I said before, it involves a significant amount of customer service, taking calls from the citizens of New Hampshire, helping to resolve their issues. It involves the important work of administering sustainable energy programs and the vital safety work related to the gas pipelines in the state, as well as DigSafe and inspections and investigations to make sure our utilities are provided safely. That work is complex and challenging and requires legal, financial, and energy expertise. The staff of the commission is comprised of a group of experts who are economists, engineers, accountants, auditors, lawyers, and analysts, as well as an incredible support staff who all work together to make sure that the commission is able to perform all of its duties. It has been an honor to join that team this year. I want to thank you all for giving us this opportunity to speak today, and I am happy to take questions at any time. Okay.
Okay, not seeing any questions. Our next presenter is Randy Nefer, the director of our safety division.
Hello, can everybody hear me and see me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. As David said, my name is Randy Nefer. I've been with the commission for about 16 years now. I've spent all my adult life in the energy field, either working for a utility, a manufacturer of energy, a consulting role for environmental, and the last 16 years at the commission here. So I saw earlier on the slide deck, or maybe I didn't see it yet, I can't remember. We do have the arbiter role of the commission is RSA 363.17, but I point to RSA 374.1, which has to deal with the general duties of utilities, and that's the one that says every public utility shall furnish such service and facilities as shall be reasonably safe, adequate, and in all other respects just and reasonable. So that was written about 110 years ago by New Hampshire legislators, and I think it's still appropriate today. And I want to call your attention that the first qualifier that they used is the word safe. And so I think that order in which they listed it is worthy of attention. And so that becomes our number one job is safe service. So basically the legislators defined our mission at the safety division. And so I will go with how we divvy up that mission task on slide 17. So slide 17 shows the 6 areas of responsibility that we're primarily involved with. The safety division, in my mind, is the technical discipline or engineering aspect portion of utility service is what we concentrate on. So we try to maintain the expertise needed within the commission to assist in the review of those kind of issues that affect design or operations, maintenance, emergency response, training, or other areas that lead to safe systems. The 6 areas of responsibility that we have are, I think Diane alluded to it, is DigSafe, calling 811 before you put a shovel in the ground. Hopefully those are terms everybody's aware of. We administer and enforce the underground damage prevention rules of the state, and 95% of our expenses in doing that are supported by 2 federal grants. That law has been in existence since 1983, and I think one of our programs is one of the best in the United States. Our ratio of damages to notifications is 1/2 the average of the United States, and I think we're in the top 5 or 6 in the country for states that do that. We do it by performing outreach and education. We do field investigations, and then we also act as the enforcement agent. And yeah, we do issue some civil penalties when warranted. All civil penalties do go to the state's general fund. That takes about 150 to 200 cases a year. And then most of those result in the PUC providing training to excavators so that they will not damage utilities in the future and try to keep our incident levels down. The second area where we work on is pipeline safety, and we conduct about 250 to 300 inspections per year. That equates to about 200 person days. And we look at field inspections, procedural inspections, record inspections. And in 2020, that led to about a dozen compliance actions involving about 50 violations of either state or federal regulations. In that area, about 70% of our expenditures are supported by federal funds. And our inspectors are required to take a vast amount of educational courses. They take 16 different one week level courses by the federal government given by the US DOT. So they really become subject matters experts in pipeline safety. The third area that we focus on is electric safety and reliability. We're one of the few New England states that does a lot of electrical safety inspections. We've just kind of started and improved that in the last year. In 2020, we have a new inspector that's doing that. And then we also investigate and report any contacts and deaths or fatalities to see if we can find things that need improvement. So we're eager to get that program mature, and it's working out very well so far. So fourth area that we work on is emergency preparedness. So we review the emergency preparedness of our utilities. So we look at their emergency plans and review them. We participate in drills with them. But then we also have a double role where we are acting as the subject matter expert for the state in implementing their emergency response plan. So we do that in two sectors. We do that in the communications and energy sector. And so we assist the Homeland Security when there's a natural disaster or anytime they open up their EOC, we're there to help out with any efforts that they need. The fourth and fifth area that we work on is engineering and GIS for the commission. So we have a pretty extensive GIS system that we communicate with the utilities on where their facilities are. And that's pretty voluntarily with the commission. It works pretty well. That gives us some of the background and information to be able to conduct our inspections, but it gives us the overall critical knowledge that we need on their infrastructure. And then the last area that we focus on is security. And security comprises of both physical security and now cybersecurity. And cybersecurity is kind of on the forefront of everybody's mind. In December of 2020, the US was probably had its largest attack on cybersecurity that affected both private industry and government. And the effects of that attack are still being investigated now. And so we believe that's a role that's going to continue to grow at the PUC. And as our adversaries want to disrupt the way we do life, attacking our infrastructure and especially energy is one way to do that. And so that's requiring more focus of the commission. So that role is growing. And on one of the slides that's right before it is just some of the statistics that I talked about in a graphical form. So with that, I think I will turn it over to the next slides, unless there's any particular questions people have on safety.
Excuse me, this is Peter Somsich. I don't know exactly how I can ask a question. Can I raise my hand? I don't see any raise hand icon right now. Or what, Mr. Chairman?
Representative Somsich, if you press the participants button at the bottom of your screen,
yes,
it may just need to pop up again. to access the raised hand. And it is best to use that function right now since the screen is limited.
Well, I do that and I don't see a raised hand anymore because all I see is the list of the participants. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, if I look at the panelists,
Yes.
then I see a raised hand. Okay, thank you very much for that information. And I actually, okay, I would like to raise my hand to ask a question of Diane, of Ms. Martin, if I could.
Okay, go ahead.
Just as a clarification for all of us who aren't lawyers, can you please just give us a brief definition of what is a docket and what is an order? And how long do these things take normally to complete?
Yes, so a docket is when we have an issue come up or an investigation or something that rises to the level of meeting a proceeding. And so that's sort of the typical thing you think of where there may be a hearing, a number of hearings, those are dockets. Orders are what comes out at the end of a docket, generally speaking. And so that's the written document that documents the decision of the commission.
And how long does this take?
It really depends upon the topic that's involved in the docket. So typically a rate case is a year-long process by statute. Other cases are shorter. There may be investigations that can go on for a long period of time that involve stakeholders and are more geared toward gathering information. And then you'll have multiple dockets related to those. So it really does depend upon the topic.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I have a quick question for Mr. Shulock. Mr. Shulock, are there time constraints on participation of members of the BUC in this presentation? And if so, should we restrict asking questions till the end or possibly not ask questions at all?
I think the commissioners have a hearing at 1 o'clock. They're the only people I think who have to leave, right? And we've designed it so that their presentations are early in the process. So I think you can feel comfortable asking questions as we go along, if you'd like, and that's probably better for the commissioners who do have that time constraint, if you ask them the questions now.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Representative Plozaz.
Yes, Ms. Martin, if you could, through you, Ms. Civil, on page 13 of your presentation, you showed the amounts of dockets, and there was a decrease for 19 and 20. Is there a reason for that? And then was there something that affected that? Thank you.
I will defer, I think, probably to Mr. Shulock to answer that because I actually joined at the end of 2019. But my sense is that the work, while always intense, ebbs and flows to a certain extent and really depends in part upon, for example, right now we have a number of rate cases. A lot of the utilities have come in for rate changes and sometimes there can be a period of time between those. So it's somewhat unpredictable, but David, do you have a response as to kind of the past years and the volume?
I think I can say that the volume has gone up since deregulation because we have, that's volume of dockets. That's not necessarily work, but the dockets are of a different type. That happened a number of years ago. The rest of it, I think, is explained, one by sometimes you task us with dockets that we have to open, right? And resolve within a certain period of time. That can change the number. And then otherwise, it's really just the ebb and flow that the chairwoman discussed. We don't actually direct utilities when to bring in cases. They bring them in as they see fit. So we're sort of subject to that ebb and flow.
Mr. Chair. If I may, yes, if I could clarify, could we go to the PowerPoint 13? I think my question was on that one. I thought it was dockets. There was a lowering in amount of we'll wait till we get there.
Corinne, can you go through each? There you go. No, it must have been the 11. The inquiries, there was lower in the last 3 years. What are inquiries? Thank you. So this slide reflects calls coming into the commission or emails coming in from members of the public about concerns. And Amanda Noonan, our director of that division, is actually here today. So if she would like to jump in and explain further, that's fine.
Sure. Good morning, representatives. So part of the reason for the decrease in inquiries made by sector has to do with economic conditions regarding the pandemic, the governor's say on disconnections of utility service, people being focused on other concerns going on in their day-to-day lives and not necessarily their utility bills. So that attributed to the decline in calls in 2020.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Ms. Noonan.
Representative Thomas, you have a question?
Yes, briefly, and primarily for the benefit of the freshmen, but mine as well. If a representative has would like to speak before the PUC about something that is happening in their district, but they are perhaps not affected by what's going on directly. In other words, if their property is not being affected by what's going on, say a particular project coming through the area, would they still be able to speak before the PUC, or do they have to go through the more formal process to recognize if they're qualified to speak or not?
Thank you, Representative. So we hear actually frequently from legislators as public comment. And so we do take public comment and invite that in most cases. So that's always an opportunity for anyone who may not have standing on the particular underlying issue. We take it in writing, we take it at hearings, and we try to provide the opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, no more questions, so let's move on.
Amanda, that's you.
Okay, thank you, David. And good morning again, representatives. My name is Amanda Noonan, and I am the director of the Commission's Consumer Services and External Affairs Division. We just talked a little bit about the analysts in the Consumer Affairs Division working with utility customers, utilities, and other stakeholders, resolving concerns and providing information related to utility service. In addition to that work, the division also assists, in addition to assisting customers in providing education, the division also oversees the Electric Assistance Program. Thank you, Corinne. The Electric Assistance Program began in 2002, and it's provided bill assistance to more than 402,000 households in New Hampshire since it was first rolled out in 2002. The program is funded through the low-income portion of the system benefits charge. It's set at 1.5 mils per kilowatt hour, which is less than $1 per month on a 625 kilowatt hour bill. Households with incomes at or below 60% of New Hampshire state median income are eligible to apply for assistance through the program. Applications are taken by the community action agencies, and the EAP eligibility criteria mirrors that of the fuel assistance program, so that applications for both programs can be completed simultaneously by a consumer, making the process easier for them, streamlining the process, and giving both programs some administrative efficiencies. The discounts range from 8% to 76%, with households with the lowest incomes as a percentage of the federal poverty guidelines receiving the highest discount on their bill. Next slide, please, Corinne. As you can see from this chart, it just kind of provides you with a breakdown of what the incomes for these households look like. So, for example, a household of 4, the maximum income that household could earn and still be eligible for the program is $69,686. That's 60% of the state median income in New Hampshire for a family of 4. A family of 4 with an income less than or equal to $19,875 would be eligible for the 76% discount on the monthly bill. However, the family of 4 with an income between $39,750 and the upper limit of $69,686 would receive a discount of 8% on its monthly bill. Next slide, please. The average benefit over the past 5 years for households on the electric assistance program has been a little over $37 a month, or about $450 a year. And you can see here what it's been year by year. There are currently approximately 30,800 households receiving assistance through the program. The participation is fairly evenly spread between each discount tier. There are 18% of the households are in the 76% tier, 19.5% are in the 52% discount tier, 18% are in the 36% discount tier, 16% in the 22% discount tier. Almost 30% are in the 8% discount tier, and that is the widest range in income. So not surprisingly, more households wind up in that discount tier than the others. Next slide, please. So competitive energy supply, the Consumer Services Division is also directly involved with issues related to competitive electric energy suppliers. As part of the restructuring of the electric industry, which occurred in the late 1990s and early 2000s, 2001, 2002, customers of the 4 electric utilities can now choose to purchase their electric energy supply from someone other than their utility. They remain a customer of their utility as the utility continues to deliver the energy to the homes and businesses and is responsible for restoring service when there's a power outage. And Tom Franz will talk a little bit later, but those utilities are now really called electric distribution companies because they're distributing the energy and they're not the sole provider of the energy itself. The Commission hosts a comparison shopping page on its website, which allows customers to compare the products and prices of competitive energy suppliers to the default energy service that they could purchase through their utility. The information on the website is maintained by the suppliers and the utilities, Suppliers are required to update their information monthly or more frequently as it changes. Utility default service prices change twice a year, so that's when you would see the change in the utility energy service price. In addition to the comparison shopping page, there's also a considerable amount of information on the Commission's website to help consumers in evaluating offers from competitive suppliers and to determine whether competitive energy supply choice is right for them. Next slide, please. So migration to competitive energy supply, not surprisingly, is very high for large commercial and industrial customers. That was the first group of customers to move from utility energy service to competitive energy service, and it continues to be the case today that far more C&I customers purchase their energy supply from a competitive supplier than do small commercial or residential customers. As a result, you see the overall customers taking competitive supply when you look at the utility may be relatively low. For example, for Eversource, only 21% of customers take competitive energy supply. That's 56% of their total sales though. So you can see how the C&I load skews those two figures. Next slide, please. Although the Commission doesn't regulate the products and prices offered by competitive suppliers, competitive electric power suppliers must register with the Commission. The Commission's adopted rules governing the registration requirements, which include financial security to protect customers in the event of a default or some other harmful behavior to consumers. The rules also focus on important consumer protection requirements, which include things like disclosure regarding the terms of service, disclosure regarding pricing, fixed pricing, variable pricing, notification about what happens, or notification prior to the contract end, a certain period of time prior to the contract end, to notify customers about what's going to happen and what they need to do next. If they wish to continue with the supplier, discontinue, do something different. The rules also establish requirements for those suppliers who wish to undertake door-to-door sales. Next slide, please. Last, I just point you to two great resources. There was a question about what's a docket and what's an order. The Commission's website, you can go to our website and find information about dockets. You can access valuable information about consumer proceedings, orders, and rules. Our Twitter account will alert you to when orders are issued, when new proceedings are opened. Both great ways to follow what's happening at the Commission. And with that, I'll turn it over to our next speaker, which I believe is Commissioner Bailey.
Good morning, Chairman Vose, members of the committee. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Kate Bailey, the other commissioner at the Public Utilities Commission. By training, I'm an engineer. And so I'm going to start telling you a little bit about electricity. My role, another role that I play is that of NESCO manager, a job Representative Harrington knows well and held with distinction. NESCO is an abbreviation for the New England States Committee on Energy. Each New England state has a NESCO manager appointed by the governor. Governor Sununu appointed me to the position in 2017. In that capacity, I work with regional colleagues to advance our common interests in the provision of electricity at the lowest prices over the long term, while maintaining reliable service and environmental quality. We share an integrated power system, or grid, with the other New England states. As you probably heard the other day, ISO New England coordinates and runs the system. This graphic represents a simplified diagram of the system. On the left side of the dotted line, you see a power plant or generator, a substation, and transmission lines. That's the system the ISO operates and FERC regulates. The costs associated with that represent 50% of our electricity bills. On the right side of the line, you see the distribution system delivering electricity to residential and commercial customers. That's the part of the system the Commission regulates. NESCO works on the cost drivers regulated by FERC. The cost drivers behind wholesale electricity rates include energy, capacity, and transmission, among other things, but those are the primary cost drivers. Energy is generated by power plants to meet the demand for electricity at a certain moment in time. The cost fluctuates every 5 minutes and is mostly based on the cost of fuel. Capacity is what we pay generators to make sure we have enough capability to generate the amount of energy needed at the peak demand. Generators like Merrimack get a capacity payment, but only generate energy on the coldest or hottest days when demand is very high. Without the capacity payment, it would be uneconomic for Merrimack to stick around to operate only a few days a year. When it operates, it also gets energy payments. Transmission carries electricity from where it's generated to where it's needed. As generators get located farther away from where electricity is used, like offshore wind in the ocean, wind turbines on a remote hill, or solar farms in rural areas, we will need to add more transmission to deliver the electricity to load centers. Next slide, please. This graph shows how much we pay for each of those components. As you can see, the cost of energy has come down as gas prices have decreased. Capacity fluctuates as power plants retire and new power plants get built. Capacity prices are set 3 years in advance to give resources the time to build. Last year, the winning bid for capacity cost for 3 years into the future was at an all-time low, so capacity costs will go down over the next 3 years. Transmission costs, on the other hand, have increased and will likely to continue to do so. Each of the 5 other New England states have passed laws to significantly reduce economy-wide carbon emissions by mid-century. That means not only the power sector will have to reduce emissions, but the transportation and building sectors must reduce emissions as well. As people move to electric vehicles and electric heat pumps, electricity demand will increase, and we will have to add additional clean generating resources. As NESCO manager, I am guided by New Hampshire RSA 374F8, which directs that we work to prevent or minimize the rate impact of other states' policies. Last year, the governors of Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Vermont issued a joint statement calling for deep decarbonization in the region. The other states' laws will have an impact on New Hampshire. As a result, I worked with my regional colleagues to draft the New England States Vision Statement. Through that work, the other states understand and agree that New Hampshire customers should not and will not pay for the policies implemented by those states. The Vision Statement focused on 3 areas that need reform. First, a market-based approach needs to be developed that will recognize clean energy generators necessary to satisfy state mandates. We have an agreement that that market will be designed to ensure that consumers in any one state do not fund the public policy requirements mandated by another state's laws. Second, we need to plan transmission, not only to satisfy reliability, as is the approach now, but to use the current transmission system more efficiently and plan a transmission grid in the least cost way that will accommodate the shift in the location of generation farther away from where electricity is used. Again, the other states have agreed that such planning is not intended to modify the state's agreement that consumers in one state don't fund the policy requirements of another state's laws. Third, we will be looking to ISO governance. Under the current system, unlike the generators and transmission owners, states do not have a vote on the rules ISO puts in place on these important issues. These are major changes, and the region is holding technical forums to solicit input and educate as many people as possible about these issues. We held the first virtual forum on January 13th, and I believe over 200 people attended. At that forum, each state explained its policy on carbon emissions, and then NEPOOL, who has voting rights on what the ISO does, and the ISO presented explanations on what each of those organizations do. A recording of that session will be posted on the newenglandenergyvision.com website. If you'd like to register for any of the other forums or follow all information on these topics, check out that website. Very quickly, I'd like to introduce you to one market solution I think has great potential. It's called the Forward Clean Energy Market, or FCEM. The idea is to create a market for clean energy attributes. States who have mandates for clean energy would purchase their required quantity of clean energy from that market. New Hampshire could purchase a quantity of 0 and would therefore not pay for other states' requirements. I believe this is a much better solution than carbon pricing, which would raise the price of energy and shift costs to New Hampshire. A market-based solution would likely provide a more cost-effective solution than long-term contracts, which in my experience always end up costing more. Finally, if New Hampshire law changes, the market would be available for New Hampshire to purchase clean energy attributes. This solution is not as simple as it sounds. There are many details to be worked out, but for now, it seems to be the most promising way to satisfy differing state laws sharing a regional power system. I'm happy to take questions if anyone has them, or we can move on to.
Representative Kelly Pitts, I know you had a question before. Do you still have one?
I think you're on mute.
Boy, I wish a lot of people had that button, I bet. When we talk about the states that New Hampshire not paying, can you explain what the cost, where we share the costs, such as the 9% or the 9.4%, I think it is now, that New Hampshire pays for out-of-state projects? Could you just briefly explain that?
Sure. New Hampshire pays for energy capacity and transmission as part of a regional system. So the price for energy is set for the region. And if for example, we had a carbon adder to the price of energy would go up, and everybody in the region would pay that price. Now, there are ideas to allow clean energy resources to keep that high price and carbon emitters to pay it back, and then it gets reallocated to the states. But it would still increase the amount of and the energy cost for New Hampshire customers because of other state policies. Another part that we share that you mentioned is the cost of transmission. And transmission costs are divided among the region based on load. And so New Hampshire has 9.4% of the region's load. So we get allocated 9.4% of the region's transmission costs. So that's why the agreement with the other states to not modify our overall agreement that states without clean energy policies shouldn't have to pay for the cost of other states' policies is very relevant for transmission, because as I mentioned, we're going to have to build more transmission to get the energy from the ocean to the load center. And that's not going to be cheap. And so one of the things that I'm working on as NESCO manager is to figure out a way to allocate that fairly.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, next speaker.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, I see Representative McGee. Go ahead, Representative McGee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming to speak with us this morning, Commissioner Bailey. My question, I think, is a follow-on to that, in that we have discussions ongoing about various policies that are coming through our committee in terms of load reducers in the clean energy sector, and how, where they belong in our energy picture. And I wonder if you could tell us anything about the New Hampshire electric energy picture right now, and whether there would be a positive impact from greater local generation, so that we wouldn't have to be leveraging all of that load towards some large capacity generator like the offshore wind that you were speaking of. In other words, what's the benefit to us having higher penetration in local generation? I guess that's the question.
Like distributed energy resources?
Yep.
Okay. Distributed energy resources can reduce the load that that the region has to serve with the other generators. So that would, let me think about this. That would reduce demand for, it could possibly reduce demand for the total capacity that we have to buy. And it would lower the amount of energy that we have.
Actually, I think I need to jump in here because we do have open dockets on the value of that distributed generation, both in terms to the system and to pricing. I'm not certain that Commissioner Bailey is the appropriate person to answer those questions.
Thank you.
Right.
General
And
Counsel.
actually, I guess probably no one should.
Point well taken.
Okay, thank you, Representative McGee. Representative Thomas.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Along that same line, I have a little more general question. So you bring the point out about we're going to have to put more transmission lines in for whatever new projects we do, such as offshore wind or any other wind or even perhaps solar. So I guess my question would be is when we have policy bills coming in that want to, that would encourage expansion of these programs, should there not be during testimony, should there not be information provided as to what the estimates of the cost of transmission prices that may rise because of that, and therefore it's a kind of a cost balancing system to see we put more of this energy in, but we're going to have to pay more for transmission, and what kind of cost that we might be expected to pay. Would that be possible information that could be provided during testimony?
I think it would be really hard to provide factual information about the cost of the transmission. I think that's an important question, and but the cost will depend on so many variables: where the new energy source is going to be located, whether there is existing transmission that can handle that. So that's one of the things that the New England Energy Vision is trying to work on is to plan for transmission under various scenarios. So assume by 2030 we have to have X amount of clean energy resources, and we know that they're going to be located in location A, B, and C. What's the cost of transmission going to be? And we don't do that kind of planning now because ISO is in charge of transmission planning, and their mission is to absolutely make sure the lights don't go out. So their mission isn't really about least cost. So that's one of the things that we're trying to change with this vision.
Thank you.
Representative Somsich.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question. Actually, it's for Ms. Noonan from the previous section, and it has to do with shopping for electric rates and the competitive energy supply. I've always noticed, as her diagrams have shown, that the commercial industrial sector has wholeheartedly embraced getting their own energy supplies at better rates than they had before, because they're at like 91%, I think was one of the numbers mentioned. But looking at residential customers of one utility, for example, there was only 18% of residents actually chose an energy supplier. And I want to point out that every time I talk to people about that, ordinary residents are very cautious and mistrustful of whether that's a good idea or not, when in fact they could get a good deal and could lower their electric rates. But they don't trust the system to be reliable for them. They just don't understand it enough. Has there been any effort made or bigger effort made to try to let residents know that they can be confident when they choose a supplier?
Thank you for your question. Certainly there's considerable information on the Commission's website. There's the shopping website that's available. We get a lot of questions. My team gets a lot of questions from customers on how competitive supply works. There certainly are, if you're a careful shopper and are willing to spend the time to pay attention, ways that consumers can benefit from competitive supply rates. Beyond that, though, the Commission hasn't undertaken any other initiatives. It is a competitive energy market, and I think it's difficult for us as the regulator to involve ourselves too deeply in it.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, one has to understand that commercial industrial businesses have a whole team of people who work on these issues for the company, and they can figure this out, what the best interest of the company is.
Would you suspend Representative?
Oh, sorry.
We're not supposed to debate.
Okay, sorry.
Questions, just ask questions.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Representative Callie Pitts.
I have one more question, and I believe it's for Amanda. When we look at the ratios of consumer requests or complaints or that you have, can you explain why, and I'm doing this for the benefit of the new people, that perhaps telephone inquiries have gone down, certain gas industries inquiries have gone down, why those have bottomed out?
Sure. No, that's a great question. And now I'm going to rack my brain and hope I come up with the right date. Sometime 2010, 2012, the legislature partially and almost completely deregulated the telephone industry. So the Commission's jurisdiction over telephone companies is very limited at this point in time. That's the primary driver behind the decrease in calls related to telephone that you see. We do still receive calls from customers, obviously, about telephone service, and we do have escalation processes in place with the telephone companies to get those resolved for customers. We also do the same for wireless, even though that has never been regulated. But it is a great service for customers to take advantage of to help go around the roadblock, so to speak, and get to somebody that can help them with their issue. So that's phone. As far as gas, you see a spike for gas, and I don't have the chart in front of me, but going by memory, again, the spike in gas calls is directly related to spike in overall energy prices, both electric and gas prices, and bills were very high and escalating. And so we had a number of calls from customers questioning that, and then with difficulty paying these high bills that were unexpected. That was 2014, 2015 polar vortex timeframe, for those who might remember that.
Follow up, Representative Callie Pitts.
No, I want to just thank Amanda.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Representative Vincent. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Ms. Noonan, for taking my question. I do believe I know the answer, but I would like to have it put out because of the other new representatives. So who owns the transmission lines? What transmission?
So I'm going to defer that question to Mr. Franz. I believe he's going to talk about that a little bit later on in the presentation. Perhaps he could jump on now and answer your question.
Happy to jump on now. Thank you, Amanda. In New Hampshire, most of the transmission is owned, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Most of the transmission is owned by Eversource. However, obviously there's the Hydro-Quebec DC line that comes down and goes into a terminal in Massachusetts. And then there's also some high voltage lines owned by what was still under the name of New England Power Transmission Company. And those are 230 kV lines for the most part next to the 450 kV DC line. And Eversource has transmission lines ranging from 115 kV up to 345 kV crossing the state.
Thank you very much for that. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Samsic. No?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I had my question answered.
Okay, thank you very much. Back to our presentation.
Hi, I'm Tom Franz, Director of the Electric Division. I know many of you and many of you know me. I've been with the commission, well, let's just say for a long time. Long enough to see the PSNH bankruptcy and reorganization back in the late 80s, early 90s, 1990. Restructuring of the industry, and then through the sale of assets and purchase power agreements into the world of much more distributed retail, customer-oriented electricity, that world that we're in today. The electric division works closely with other divisions, including the Sustainable Energy Division and the Audit Division and Safety Division, as well as Amanda's group, and of course, legal. It's a heavy workload division. I think if you saw that, previous slide, a lot of the dockets, most of them were electric dockets, starting with DE and a lot of the investigations. The electric division works primarily on rates, whether those are the big rate cases that get filed once every 2, 3, 4 years, or the everyday filings that come in with changes in certain aspects of the tariff, or the default service filings that the utilities make twice per year to change that service that goes to customers who choose not to go to a competitive electric supplier. We also work on a number of planning aspects associated with the least cost plans, the energy efficiency resource standard, which in one way or another, the commission's been working on energy efficiency issues since the mid to late 1980s, just to give a little perspective there, as well as least cost planning, even though it's evolved over time. We also look at reliability and vegetation management, cost recovery associated with outages, on and on, rates are us. Just to give a little quick history though, for those who may not remember, the PSNH generation assets were sold in 2017 and 18 in that range. Came out of the 2015 settlement agreement. And so PSNH no longer, Eversource no longer owns generation. It does have just a couple of purchase power agreements, one with the Burgess Biomass Power Plant up in Berlin, and a small amount of power purchased from the Lemster Wind Facility. But it's no longer the owner of the hydro or fossil thermal units that it had for all those years. And that sale brought in about $258 million, $175 million from the thermal units, about 83 million from the hydro units. It also created a fair amount of stranded costs, which you see on an Eversource bill, which we'll get to. So just wanted to mention that as background. And then we'll jump into the New Hampshire numbers. This is just a real high level overview of the electricity market, industry, and franchise service territories in New Hampshire of our utilities, as well as the 5 municipal electric companies that we don't regulate. And we have minimal regulation of the New Hampshire Electric Co-op. But I believe this very slide is hanging in the ST&E conference room, committee room. So hasn't changed a lot over time. We still have 4 franchise electric utilities. As Amanda said, electric distribution companies. Eversource is by far the largest of those. Depending on how you measure it, somewhere around 72% of sales or customers, again, or peak load. And then of course, Unitil, which has areas in this, down in the seacoast, as well as over here in Concord area. And of course, Liberty, which we also still know as Granite State Electric Company. Retail sales have been fairly constant over the last several years and expected to stay that way. So we can jump now to the next slide. I'll fly through these. My understanding is Mr. Crease discussed this at some length, the revenue requirement. This is at the heart of regulation. If you looked at a regulatory book or a commission order or way back almost even 100 years ago, you'd see something like this for determining rates. So at the very basic level of rate making, it's the revenue requirement and it's some form of this, although there are variations over time, and we can talk about performance-based rate making and incentive rate making, but at the heart of what we do for setting rates for utilities is the revenue requirement based on the actual prudently incurred operating maintenance costs, depreciation, amortization, and a fair rate of return for the shareholder. All right. Quick look at what a typical bill looks like for a residential customer. This one happens to be of Eversource for somewhere around 625 kilowatt hours per month, which is typical. Obviously varies by year, by time of year. Summertime usage is much higher, but this is your average per month for a typical residential customer. And as you can see, the energy portion, this customer, we assume, is taking energy service, default service from Eversource. Eversource goes out to bid twice per year for 6 months at a time, solicits power in the wholesale market. We get anywhere, from several bidders to a number of bidders for that slug of power. They also go out for commercial and industrial as well as residential. And that price can vary depending on the 6-month period. If it's winter, that's usually a higher price. If it's, we see lower prices in the summer when there's a lot more natural gas availability and gas prices are low into the fall. But this gives you a good idea of how a typical customer's bill breaks out. Transmission, as Commissioner Bailey said, is a significant component and one that's increased quite a bit over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Probably dates me some, but when I started, transmission was a very, very, very small amount of the overall bill, and generation, the energy portion, was by far the largest, sometimes varying around between 65 and 70%. We've seen energy prices drop because of natural gas prices falling, and that's reflected in the default service solicitations that we get from wholesale providers. And that shows that we're down in the anywhere from 6 cents to 7.5 cents per kilowatt hour now. And then the other components, as I mentioned, stranded costs. Obviously, distribution is a significant component. and the other pieces. All right, next one, please. And this is just to give an idea of how these default service prices varied over the last 10 years. So, and Ms. Noonan mentioned the polar vortex. That was quite disruptive in the markets because of the really cold weather and the shortages of natural gas, because natural gas was going under contract to retail end use customers. That made it very difficult to provide to the wholesale generators that run natural gas combined cycle plants. And that drove up the price dramatically in those cold vortex years and had some lingering effect for a while. And what we see is a pretty good seasonality in these rates. And I'll stop there and quickly take some questions, as I'm sure we're working through our time slot rather rapidly here, and we have lots of other people to go.
Well, I see no questions and no hands raised, so we can continue on with the presentation. It is 11:45, so we're moving quite deeply into the time we've allotted. So let's continue on.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope people can hear me. Yeah, I see a few heads shaking. Good. So my name is Karen Crampton, and I am the director of the Sustainable Energy Division at the Commission. And the Sustainable Energy Division's primary responsibility is administering the Renewable Portfolio Standard and its associated programs. We're also responsible for ensuring compliance by the energy suppliers. And we also, as Amanda and Tom have stated, we work collaboratively with the other divisions at the Commission on renewable energy related issues and dockets and consumer inquiries. So with that, I'm going to, my presentation is a little bit different than others so far, in that I'm going to try to give a quick overview of the Renewable Portfolio Standard policy here in New Hampshire. This policy is the state's renewable energy policy. It was enacted in 2007, and it sets targets for renewable energy generation here in the state. And it sets those targets as a % of total load. The purpose is stated in the statute is that the RPS will provide fuel diversity, local fuels, keeping energy dollars here in the state. It will reduce exposure to fossil fuel fluctuation in prices. And the renewable energy will encourage it will encourage the development of low emission technologies, which will provide environmental and public health benefits. As of the end of last year, we had 5,200 approximately facilities certified in New Hampshire as eligible to participate in the RPS, and almost 5,100 of those facilities were located in New Hampshire. When I say the word facility, what we mean by that is a solar array, a wind facility, hydro facility, those types of technologies. So it's an energy generator. Corinne, next slide, please. So with that, this slide attempts to illustrate how the RPS works. RPS, again, is the Renewable Portfolio Standard. I'm going to start on the left-hand side, top corner. You'll see a blue circle that says electricity suppliers. The electricity suppliers, and that includes both our distribution utilities, which are regulated at the Commission, along with our competitive suppliers, are required to meet compliance or comply with the RPS. And the way they comply is by purchasing renewable energy certificates or making alternative compliance payments that are a certain percentage of their electricity load or their sales to end customers. So what happens on an annual basis is electricity suppliers, like I said, comply with the RPS. If they make alternative compliance payments because there aren't enough RECs available in the market, those alternative compliance payments go into what we call the Renewable Energy Fund. That is the green circle located on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. That fund then encourages and is used to incentivize the development of new renewable energy facilities in New Hampshire. So that fund provides dollars or money for the administrative staff or the staff at the commission. It provides funding into the residential rebate programs along with the low and moderate income grant program. And it also provides funding for commercial and industrial rebates and grant programs. When I refer to commercial and industrial here, one thing that is often confusing is that is really a rate class designation. So commercial and industrial does include towns, schools, and those types of entities. So they participate in our programs from what we call a C&I perspective. Those newly constructed and interconnected generation units then create what we call a renewable energy certificate. That renewable energy certificate represents 1 megawatt hour of renewable energy generation. People, those facility owners apply with the commission. My staff reviews those applications per our rules and then certifies those facilities. Once the facility is certified, they report their information to the New England Power Pool Generation Information System, NEPOOL GIS, through what we call an independent monitor. So this is how we're ensuring that the energy produced that's being reported up to NEPOOL is accurate. NEPOOL then takes that generation and does what we call mint RECs. So for every megawatt hour of generation, NEPOOL will generate or mint 1 REC. That REC is then, through a market mechanism, is then used by our suppliers to meet their RPS requirements. So you can see it's somewhat circular because then those RECs are used for compliance. If there aren't enough RECs, again, it goes into an ACP and we continue to go around in that circle. Okay, Corinne, next slide, please. So how does this all relate then, that market mechanism, how does that relate specifically to the RPS? The graph shows our state requirements or our targets for renewable energy. You'll see that we have 5 classes here in New Hampshire. Those are 5 different types of technologies that each contribute to us meeting our overall target. So we have represented in blue, class 1, that's all new renewables and the production of biodiesel. New renewables are things like, again, new onshore and offshore wind, new hydro, solar, well, not solar, sorry, things like that. Then we get into our class 1 thermal. That is actually the creation of thermal energy through renewable energy resources. We have class 2, which is specific to new solar. And then we have class 3, which is our existing biomass facilities and existing methane. So class 1 would be new methane and class 3 is the existing. And then class 4 is our existing small hydro. Corinne, next slide, please. So as I mentioned, these renewable generation facilities will create RECs on an annual basis, and then we look at the compliance annually. And when we talk about annually, we are talking about a calendar year in this situation, not a fiscal year. So the graph on the left-hand side shows how the different suppliers, energy suppliers, have met their compliance requirements since 2008. The total cost of compliance and the mechanism, again, for meeting compliance is both a combination of renewable energy certificates and alternative compliance payments. So in this graph, the RECs are represented in green. The blue is the alternative compliance payments. So as you'll see, most years we are, and most recently, meeting most of our obligations through these renewable energy certificates. Over on the right-hand side, I'm showing the average rate impact, and this is something that we are required to calculate and provide actually on the customer's electric bills annually. And this is across the state, so it is important to know that we do not do this calculation per utility or per competitive supplier. This is taking the overall cost of the RPS, which again is the cost of the RECs that were purchased, along with the alternative compliance payments, dividing it by the total electricity used within the state to then give you that, for example, in 2019, the 0.0061 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's a little over a half a cent per kilowatt hour. Corinne, next slide, please. So that just looked at the total cost of the RPS. As I said, there are two ways of meeting that obligation. One is through the renewable energy certificates. The other is through alternative compliance payments. The Renewable Portfolio Standard provides for a renewable energy fund, which is solely funded by the alternative compliance payments. Those alternative compliance payments, as I mentioned earlier, are then used for incentivizing projects through grants and rebates. So the Renewable Energy Fund is a dedicated non-lapsing fund, again, to support those renewable energy initiatives. It is administered by the Commission, but not continually appropriated. So that means that any unspent funds that we have at the end of the year do not carry forward into the next fiscal year. Corinne, next slide, please. So just to I highlight some of the accomplishments of those grants and rebate programs, this chart provides you information on our 5 rebate programs. And this is a cumulative chart. So it's showing data since around 2010, 2011, when a lot of these programs were begun. But you can see overall, we've just paid out over $35 million worth of rebates to New Hampshire residents and businesses, towns, municipalities, schools, and such. Those $35 million worth of rebates have spurred total investment in projects of almost $250,000. No, I'm sorry, $250 million, $222 million. So we are seeing that investment to expenditure ratio of almost 6 to 1. So for every dollar we put into these rebates, we're seeing about $6 of economic development through those projects. We've also, just to give you some feel for the amount of rebate applications and quantities that are coming through, we've paid out about 8,000 rebates to date. In fiscal year 20, we paid out over 1,000 rebates. Corinne, next slide, please. The other part of our work is grants. These are competitive grants that are run through requests for proposals at the Commission. Our non-residential or C&I grant program has been in existence since 2011. It is a statutorily required program. And as you'll see by the chart, we've awarded 43 grants to date, valued with grant funding at over $12 million, spurring project development in excess of $60 million. The two graphs, the two pie charts, just show how that money's been spent. And as you can see on the left-hand side, the grants by technology, we've given grants to geothermal, hydroelectric, biomass projects, solar thermal, landfill gas, a variety of technologies. The technologies that are shaded more in the orange tones are our thermal type generation versus the blues are electricity generation projects. The graph over to the right, or the pie chart to the right, it just gives you a sense that, you know, we're funding and providing grants to both private entities and public entities. So a lot of schools, municipalities, wastewater treatment plants have benefited from our grant program, as well as you know, businesses. The other competitive grant that we run annually is the low and moderate income solar grant program. This program has only been in place for 3 years. It was introduced through a bill roughly 3 years ago. And to date, we've awarded 6 projects. This is for community solar. Those community solar projects provide direct benefit to over 100 low and moderate income families here in New Hampshire. And they're providing that benefit without any upfront cost or ongoing costs. So we're very proud of that program. We, if you want to have more information on it, we did create a report or publish, file a report with the commission that was again required under the law, that took a look at the types of projects that were being funded and the types of benefits being given to those families. Corinne, next slide, please. So that was a summary of the Renewable Portfolio Standard, how it works. I hope it was helpful. I know we get into a lot of details, and I'm happy to, as you're hearing bills, dive a little bit deeper into some of the areas that you'll be tackling this legislative session. But I'd like to switch gears and talk a little bit about net metering. The Sustainable Energy Division has worked very closely with the Electric Division on the net metering the alternative net metering docket, and we spend quite a lot of time working with consumers, businesses, and such, understanding net metering, to help them understand net metering, how it works, and how it works here specifically for New Hampshire. So at a very, very high level, this picture, and I did take it off of Eversource's website and modified the words just slightly, so I will give them credit. Basically shows a very simple net metering example where you would have solar panels, for example, on your house or in a field. Those solar panels are directly connected to an inverter that's at your house or again in the field. As the sun hits the solar panels, electricity is generated. That generated electricity is either used by the home or business if there is demand. If there is not enough demand for that electricity, the electricity is sent out to the grid. That's where you're seeing those blue arrows going up to the power lines. And if it's evening and the sun is not shining and there's not electricity being generated, the gray arrows coming from the power pole is electricity coming into the house. And really what's then happening on a monthly or shorter interval is that power going out versus the power coming in is quote unquote netted. And the customer's bill at the end of the month at the end of the billing cycle reflects that net energy consumed. So the other thing, oops, and I'm sorry, let me just, not being able to see what my next slide is. I think I need to keep talking here. Yes, I do. So the other thing that we have here in New Hampshire is what we call group net metering. And what group net metering allows is for that electricity that's being generated to be shared by multiple meters or accounts within the same distribution territory. So this could be For example, like our low moderate income solar program, where there's a larger array out in the field, that excess generation is then shared by multiple households. And that's what we call group net metering. That sharing can be done in a number of ways. We have what we call traditional group net metering, which is done simply by what we're calling the host or the owner of the renewable facility, where they're then sharing the excess generation with their what we're calling members. The other thing that was enacted and rules were just implemented at the commission is what we are calling, what legislature has enacted is on-bill credits, which allows that sharing of credits, monetary credits, by the utility on each of the customers' electric bills. The other thing that we have dealing with net metering is an adder for solar specifically that meets requirements for low moderate income recipients. So you can get an adder on top of the general net metering rate for that. Okay, I think that was my high level on net metering. Corinne, next slide, please. And this is just a quick summary. I would say one of the largest dockets that the division works on is the alternative net metering docket. That was actually started a number of years ago, but through the commission order, there were a number of follow-up requirements that came out of that order. So the alternative net metering docket did set a new tariff for net metering, which is energy, well, for small systems, energy, transmission, and 25% of distribution. For larger facilities over 100 kW, the compensation rate remains at simply the energy. But out of that docket, we needed to update what we call the 900 rules, which are the rules behind net metering. So those rules have been updated to reflect the alternative net metering tariff, along with all of the group net metering changes that have been made, including the on-bill credit and the LMI adder. And we also did some updates just to some miscellaneous technical items. The other thing that happened this past year is the locational value of distributed generation study was completed and filed with the commission. You can find that on our website. It's quite a lengthy report with a lot of detail in it. And then we will be proceeding this year with the value of distributed energy resources study. The commission did issue an RFP in 2020, and we are working towards getting that contracted with a consultant. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you all. I know it's been a long morning for everybody. I appreciate your attention and look forward to working with you during the session.
My hearty thanks to the Public Utilities Commission for a wonderful presentation, as usual, and for their participation here this morning. As we've already broached the noon hour, we're going to move directly to our next set of presentations, which will be delivered by a consortium of our state utility companies. And so I will turn the floor over to the lead for that group, who I believe is Donna Gamache of Eversource. Ms. Gamache, go ahead.
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yes,
sorry
we can.
about that.
Yes, we can
Very
hear you.
sorry. I can't believe I'm that person. Okay, so it is the noon hour and we are standing between you and lunch, and you've already listened to a lot. So we are going to move into our presentation, but I promise you that there will be items that that we will skip because you've already heard much of it. So thank you for the opportunity to listen to all the state's electric and gas utilities this afternoon. We're anxious to see you all in person and to meet the new representatives on the committee in person. So in the meantime, today's presentation is really intended to provide you with a very high-level overview of our businesses. And it's important for all of you to get this presentation because much of what you do in this committee affects how we provide service to our customers. So we hope that when we're done today, that the slides that you'll have reviewed will help you recognize a few things. And that is that we make sure that we're in tune with what our customers need from us. We strive for that every day, but we also work to make sure that you, the policymakers, have the information that you need as you move forward with your work. And we hope that we can provide you the practical experiences of what our customers have and need during your decision making. So we will all be speaking to different parts of this presentation. So hopefully it'll all go smoothly. And I cannot tell if the slides are up yet or not, but I do have the first slide. So if they,
Donna, I'm just gonna put them up right now, 1 second.
Great, thank you. Great. Okay, so the slide that I'm going to be referencing is the slide that has the map on it. And so first off, let me just thank you for the opportunity to be before you today. My name is Donna Gamache. For those of you who don't know, for the new members, I'm the Director of Governmental Affairs for Eversource Energy. And as you've heard before, we are the largest energy company in New Hampshire, and we serve well over 500,000 electric customers in 211 communities and over 70% of New Hampshire's electric customers. We have you heard a little bit about this before, we have over 1,000 miles of transmission lines in the state and 14,000 miles of distribution lines. And, you know, transmission lines are like the superhighway for electricity. They move high voltage electricity over long distances quickly. Eversource is also the largest property taxpayer in New Hampshire. In 2020, we paid just over $92 million in property taxes. And those taxes go not just to the communities where we have customers, but also to those communities where we have infrastructure that allows us to connect our customers. We have also over 1,100 employees and 16 different work locations throughout the state. And obviously we try to hit every corner of the state for the work as well as with storms. But we also recently added some mobile work centers that can be moved to an area during a storm event that is fitted with the latest technology to ensure that we have a swifter restoration. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mark.
Good morning. My name is Mark Dean. I'm a lawyer here in Concord, New Hampshire, and have the pleasure to serve as the co-op's general counsel. And despite the appearance of the headphones, I'm not an airline pilot on the side. A brief overview and introduction to the co-op, especially for those of you who may not be familiar with it. Obviously, I'm not going to try to go through every point on the slides, but the map there, you see the different colored areas. That's all New Hampshire Electric Co-op service territory. The different colors are for the various operational districts that the co-op has. That map maybe is a slight exaggeration because it looks like most of those are sort of by town. And in many of those towns, the co-op may serve only a small portion of the town, and Eversource or others might also be present. I guess the thing that I would like to make sure I leave with you about the co-op is from a phrase that I've done a lot of work in Thailand, and there's a phrase you commonly hear there, which is same, but different. And that's what the co-op is among its electric distribution company peers. We're same in that we own poles, wires, transformers, have service centers, linemen, and basically provide the services you'd expect from an electric distribution company. But we're different because we're owned by the consumers that purchase the electricity. The co-op was founded back in 1939. It's a not-for-profit electric co-op owned by the members it serves. The members elect the co-op's board of directors. We've got about 85,000 members. We're in 118 communities. We have a very different customer/member mix than some of the other utilities. 40% are seasonal members and 87% are residential. So it creates a different business dynamic in some regards. Because of the fact that the co-op is member-owned and member-controlled, the legislature back in 2000 passed a law that allowed co-op members to vote whether they wanted to basically remain fully regulated like the investor-owned utilities as they had been in the past, or adopt a substantially deregulated status. And they did that, and since 2000, the co-op is not considered a public utility within the context of most of the New Hampshire statutes concerning PUC regulations and requirements. So anytime if you're looking at a piece of legislation that deals with the electric utilities, if you see that phrase, usually that's how it works, is that it will be applicable to public utilities, and so implicitly then it doesn't apply to the co-op unless there's a long phrase that gets tagged in there about deregulated electric co-ops, and you'll know they're talking about us. The co-op is one of the things that it does participate in as part of the PUC regulation is the statewide energy efficiency programs, and I'll be giving a little bit of an overview of that later in the presentation. The co-op also has energy efficiency, electric vehicle programs, and similar what we call social and environmental responsibility programs that are not funded by the systems benefits charge that we advance. And the sort of next best thing for the co-op, it has recently gotten involved in broadband expansion. It built 2 of the CARES funded projects over the last few months, and it has won grants from the FCC to extend high-speed fiber through many of the communities that the co-op serves, and so that under the name New Hampshire Broadband will be something you'll be seeing and hearing about, so that you may get the pleasure of having me come in and testify on bills that aren't necessarily electricity related. And with that, unless there are any questions, I'll move on to the next slide and let Huck Montgomery talk about Liberty.
Thanks, Mark. So I am really pleased to share with all of you for the first time, I think today, the big news that Liberty Utilities is now simply Liberty. And we've turned over our logo and our brand to reflect more of our values around clean energy, greener, cleaner, more sustainable energy systems. And we're excited to see this new brand sort of starting to roll out across all of our footprint. So you'll still see a mix of some of the old branding of Liberty Utilities on our trucks and some other places where you'll see that just because we're, if that, say truck wrap had been, invested in recently, we're not going to sort of waste money on the useful life of that wrap. We're going to, make sure we're adhering to our responsibility to our customers to make sure that they're getting good value. But we really think that the value add of this new brand is important because it symbolizes, again, that really central commitment that we have as a utility to sustainable energy systems. So I think as most everybody here knows, Liberty is the larger of the 2 natural gas utility companies in the state of New Hampshire, but also the smallest of our electric utilities. So we have a service territory in on the gas side that's illustrated here in blue, and it really runs up the 93 corridor, really from Nashua to Tilton and everything in between. That's really the economic backbone of the state. So we're excited to continue to grow and be a part of the economic engine of the state of New Hampshire as the gas utility provider here. Also, we serve, again, on the electric side here, illustrated in yellow, the Salem area, the Upper Valley area, and the Charlestown area. So that is our footprint, and the unique configuration of that footprint is what sets us apart from our peers. And so sometimes when we will be talking to you about our policy priorities, that'll really be informed by that footprint, the way that our service territory is configured. So I believe there are several of you here on the committee who live and represent our electric service territory. And also I know many of you who live in our gas service territory. So looking forward to working with all of you, and very excited to see what we can accomplish together this session. Happy to take any questions anybody may have, and looking forward to, I think, also talking a little bit more about natural gas as a commodity and a utility provided commodity later in the deck. So for the time being, I will turn it over to Kat to talk about Unitil.
Thank you, Huck. Good morning, everybody. It's very nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces as well. As Huck said, I'm Kat Burke. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for Unitil here in New Hampshire, as well as in Massachusetts and in Maine. Unitil was founded in 1984 as an electric and natural gas company here in New Hampshire. We are headquartered here in New Hampshire in Hampton. We have about 390 New Hampshire employees. And as you can see from the map, we serve about 77,000 electric customers, mostly in the capital region and on the coast. And we also serve about 35,000 natural gas customers over on the seacoast region. Our centralized customer service center is in Concord. Of course, all of those individuals are remote right now for the most part, but that's where you would find our customer service center during normal times. We have a centralized electric center and a brand new facility over in Exeter, and our centralized gas dispatch center is in Portsmouth. I'll keep this moving back to Donna, I believe.
Yes. So I have some good news for you. This slide is just intended to share the basics of how we get and move power to our customers, but you've already had that overview. So I think we can skip that one if you don't mind. Okay, so this slide is basically the transformation of the grid. So historically, the grid has evolved to adapt to changing system conditions and customer expectations. And this slide is intended to just show you a snapshot of how not only the system, but our customers' needs have changed. When electricity was first introduced in America, utilities weren't regulated and there were no service territories. And some of you may have seen photos of streets in the Northeast where there were multiple sets of poles and an ugly mass of wires. And it was soon decided that that couldn't keep on. So it was decided that utilities would be granted a service territory, and without the customers within that service territory to have the opportunity to decide which utility he or she wanted, the regulatory compact was created to ensure that there's strict oversight of a utility's operations and costs. The system at that time was pretty primitive, but with the growth of the economies around the region and more sharing of resources, new control systems were introduced. And then, fast forward to 2003, the blackout of that year resulted in some new federal enforceable standards that resulted in the grid being planned and built to improve reliability. That really was the cornerstone of making so many changes in transmission. So you may have noticed that shortly after that time, there was what appeared to be a mass clearing of transmission rights of way. And that blackout was the result, apparently, at least I think in my memory, of a tree in Ohio that hit a line. And there are now clear requirements and strict penalties for not keeping these roads clear. So from the early days to today, all of the state utilities have invested in infrastructure that allows us to be more sustainable. anticipate the growth of our customers, and to expand automation and to accommodate the incorporation of our customers' connections. So these investments will bring us to the grid of the future, which is the next slide, Kat. This one I can be very, very brief. It's just that today's grid looks very different than it did not that long ago. We and all the utilities are continuing to find ways to be more automated. And I'll get into a little more detail later, but the automation, just one of the real benefits of the automation is we had 12 storms this summer. And some of them were worse than others, and many of you probably didn't even feel that in some cases, we were able to restore 40,000 customers in 5 minutes because of that automation, where that may have taken us 2 days just a few short years ago. So the automation is really helpful. It's helpful for many other ways as well, and it helps keep us reliable as much as possible. And what we're trying to do is anticipate new technologies coming and anticipating what those costs would be to make sure that our customers can take advantage of those technologies in a way that's more cost effective. So there's a big focus on our part at what's going on at not only at the state level, but also at the federal levels for that. Next slide, Kat. This is just a visual of how the grid has changed. As we look to the future, all of the utilities are in a really good position to stay focused on solutions that our customers want, with a focus on any technology that's at our doorstep. And I just want to be very clear here. A utility is not in the business to test out technologies, just hoping that they're going to work or hoping that they won't be too expensive. For the most part, we will work with those who are testing them, but it would be very rare that our regulators would ever approve us moving forward with a technology that hasn't been warrantied or hasn't been proven already. So for an example, one of the things that we were lucky enough to do in Massachusetts is on Cape Cod, we have a battery storage system that we installed there because we found that the local ecosystem was so sensitive that a need for a new line, that it was a distribution line. We needed 2 distribution lines. And the ecosystem was so sensitive that we just couldn't do that. So we were able to move forward with installing a battery storage system there. It's working really well there, but we're trying to learn from that here in New Hampshire so that by the time that system has been in place a while, we can learn better ways to do it and find a way to do it a little more cost effectively here in New Hampshire. Next slide. This is really just for the most part, I think I have one more slide, but my closing slide. And it's just meant to show that not only have things changed in terms of poles and wires and that kind of technology, but traditional fossil fuel power generators are increasingly being retired throughout New England. And we are always looking for ways to ensure that our customers have the electricity they need whenever they need it. You've heard a lot about expanding local small renewable generation. And there's a great place for that. What we think that is in the best interest of our customers is to have a balance so that we have as much of that local, small renewable energy generation, but it's also backed up with larger scale, clean, affordable energy so that they can put, as one, the prices are going up, the other one's putting downward pressure on that. So our customers can have a clean, reliable system that it is hopefully as cost effective as possible. And even maybe in the whole region, New Hampshire can be an example. So we know that our customers want clean energy, and we want to be able to give it to them. As you know, maybe you don't know, but we, like other utilities, we are focused on a target of being carbon neutral by 2030. But we feel that we can reach that goal in a way that keeps an eye on our customers' rates. And as we move forward with more clean energy options, we stay in touch with our customers, and they tell us they want more clean energy, but they also want it to be as affordable as possible. And that is something that we're very focused on. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mark.
Great, thank you, Donna. So I have a few slides here just to give a quick overview of the statewide energy efficiency programs that apply to both the distribution electric companies and the gas companies. And I know that Don Crease, the Office of Consumer Advocate, presented last week or so. I wasn't there, but I imagine he talked about this some bit, so I won't go into too much detail. So prior to 2002, each of the utilities had annual filings that included some measure of energy efficiency programs that they would propose and operate over the upcoming year. In 2002, that became a more unified arrangement where all the utilities filed jointly, worked together to develop programs in a way that is both consistent statewide, so consumers, if there's, for example, advertising of programs, it's more uniform, so it's more effective, and also allows for, I think, a more efficient administration of the programs. The energy efficiency programs, I won't go through all the numbers here, but they're designed to reduce the amount of electricity that's used in the state. That will contribute to reducing peak usage days. Those peak usage days can drive costs that are spread over consumers for an entire year, because whether it's in transmission or in capacity values, these electric systems have to be constructed to make sure they're built to handle the largest load that is historically experienced or projected. And so when you push the peaks down, you decrease the demand for new generation construction and new transmission construction. And those are, if you'll recall from the pie charts you saw earlier, the capacity, energy, and transmission costs make up a majority of the cost of electric service in the state of New Hampshire. So we can go to the next slide. The utilities jointly provide these services through the New Hampshire Saves brand, and they offer services to customers, both residential and commercial customers, in a variety of ways, from providing audits to determine what the needs are of individual customers, to providing discounts and rebates on lighting and appliances, heating systems, cooling systems, and active demand reduction, which involves either the controlled curtailment of electric consumption during certain periods, or education about the value of that for consumers, or providing incentives for consumers to voluntarily curtail their consumption during peak hours. Again, the more that demand is reduced at peak times of usage, the better the effects are on minimizing the costs of both the energy, additional transmission requirements, and additional generation construction requirements. We can go to the next slide. So the energy efficiency programs are funded primarily through the systems benefits charge, which is roughly, it's a different percentage for each of the utility, but I think from an earlier pie chart you saw, when the commission was providing information, it's about 3 to 4% of an average bill. And that would include low-income portion of the system benefits charge as well. And that funding supports these programs that provide significant savings to consumers on their electric bills to the extent they take advantage of those programs, has environmental benefits, comfort in your home benefits, and for those who participate, and has the cost-saving advantages that I discussed earlier about peaks, etc., for all consumers, whether they participate in the programs or not. These are programs that save money. They take an extraordinary amount of effort. This is when the commission was talking about dockets. The dockets involved in the energy efficiency programs pretty much are on running and ongoing at all times. Implementing, developing, and evaluating the quality of these programs is a major endeavor. It takes a lot of the commission's time, and the utilities have significant dedicated staffs and resources to it. It's something that I know, representing New Hampshire Electric Cooperative, we feel it's a very important part of our mission, and we think all of the other utilities that participate feel the same way. And I think if there aren't specific questions on that, and if they're technical, I would probably call on someone else to answer them. We would go to Kat.
Thanks, Mark. So I just wanted to take a moment to highlight one of the great programs that the utilities take part in, and that's a comprehensive vegetation management program. So the gist of this program is just to make sure that we prevent trees from interfering with electric lines during normal conditions and also during significant storming events. We do that through a variety of ways. The biggest way is probably through cycled pruning, which happens on a 5-year cycle. We also do a mid-cycle review of that 5-year cycle, so about every 2.5 years, where we're pre-planning for the next cycle of pruning and just identifying any issues that may be coming up in that next 5-year period. We also identify hazard tree mitigation through a storm resilience plan as well. So we're specifically looking for any trees and the like that would cause issues during a significant storm event. And we do have a forest management manager who deals with these issues and make sure that we're up to speed on all of these problems. We also deal with sub-transmission maintenance, which is essentially just mowing rights of ways. But those are all just some examples of how the various utilities take part in vegetation management. And again, the goal of this is to not only ensure that we have reliable service and customer satisfaction, but it also helps reduce in the overall cost of storm prep in the future and response while we are dealing with a significant event. So these are all preventative measures that we take part in. And on the storm event note, I'll take a moment to talk about the emergency response that the utilities take part in. So many of you will frequently reach out to us, before storms or during storms. And as you know, all of the utilities take part in an incident command structure, or ICS, that allows us to flexibly respond to various storm and emergency events. This could be a significant snowstorm, it could be a wind event, it could be a gas emergency, or the like. And essentially what happens is internally, each company would stand up this ICS structure. Depending on what kind of event there is, a certain individual within the company would lead those groups of individuals who are responsible for various roles in the company and would get them through that event. So all employees, specifically at Unitil, do have a secondary storm role for their normal job. So I can use myself as an example. I'm Unitil's Director of Government Affairs, and when we have a storm situation or an emergency situation where we activate our incident command structure, I serve as liaison for the company. So that mostly involves communicating with elected officials like yourselves and regulators in all 3 states with any kind of public service announcements, answering specific questions on outages, directing them where they can report that and the like. So that's how the storm roles work. And the utilities also take part in annual system drills. Unitil, we do that on the gas and electric side, which is essentially a full day scenario drill where we would play out a certain event, and we would get everyone in the company who would be impacted by that event to run that scenario and respond appropriately. As you can imagine, we do have a very strong commitment to safe and timely restorations, but we do have phases that we go through in order to ensure that we can get there. So the first phase is public safety phase. If you had an event like the one that you can see in the photo here, the first issue would be to make sure that everyone treats down wires as live wires. If it was a gas event, it would be to evacuate individuals. Before we can move to any kind of damage assessment, that is of course the priority. damage assessment phase would include members of the utilities going out and doing just that, assessing damage and deciding what tools and resources they need in order to move to the next phase, which is restoration process. Many of you probably are aware of the communications pre-event, during, and post of a significant event where sometimes the incident command structure is set up, or even if it's just something that we think is going to be, a complicated but not as burdensome event. If it's on a holiday, for example, Christmas this past year, we did send out some PSAs and the like, and just to prepare people for that particular event. So we do work very closely with municipalities and first responders so that they're aware of any weather events that we see coming up, and we can appropriately respond with them. I do communicate with elected officials. So if you're in Unitil service territory, you'll likely receive emails from me, just letting you know that we're expecting some weather, how to follow us on social media, how to report outages, and then letting you know when the event's sort of wrapping up. I think with that, I'll turn it over to Huck. Or sorry, Donna.
That's okay. I think you've seen this differently in a previous, I think the PUC probably talked to you about the electric bill components, but I'll be very brief because you've already seen it. But I think the most important takeaway here is that before restructuring of the electric industry here in New Hampshire, customers got their bill and it just had how much per kilowatt hour to get your service, and that was it. Now it's broken down a little bit more, and the top component, energy service, that is the one where you have the choice to get your service from somebody else, or take what we call default service. If you choose not to choose, you can get default service from Eversource. And our rates are expected to change February 1st, and I don't know what that's going to be, but as of August 1st, the current rate structure that we're under right now, our all-in cost of electricity right now is 18.614 cents per kilowatt hour. And the energy portion there is 7.068 cents. That is the largest component of the bill. There are other components that they move around all the time. And I think somebody before me mentioned that transmission, the cost of transmission is increasing on the bill. Right now, transmission is 3.011 cents per kilowatt hour, or about 16% of the current bill. In some ways, the fact that it is increasing, some people don't like it, but it's increasing for a lot of different reasons. Much of New England, the transmission system was put in place and constructed many, many years ago, and lots of the system needs to be upgraded. So all of the states in New England has been actively trying to upgrade their transmission system. And I think we're coming to the end of a lot of that. But as was mentioned before, also, in order to make sure that the renewable energy, which the larger scale renewable energy, which is really essential to keeping the system together, it's not something right in the middle of a city or right in the middle where the load is. It's typically outside, and we need the transmission to try to get it to where the sources of that power, where they want to take the power, are. So I think that's all I would say on this, because you've already gone through this once already, and I'll move it on to, I think this is Huck.
Great. Thanks, Donna. So just want to briefly talk about natural gas as a utility rate regulated commodity, because we spend so much time talking about electricity, because obviously that, every single family and business in New Hampshire relies on electric service. Hang on, someone is calling me, which I will decline. Fewer, but a really significant number do rely on natural gas for energy service. About 170 or so thousand customers of Liberty's and Unitils that are natural gas customers, and that's growing. But we do think that the role of natural gas as a rate-regulated commodity in New Hampshire is really critically important. In fact, I was really pleased to hear our consumer advocate Don Crease write in a column last year that the provision of natural gas as a rate-regulated commodity is, quote, compatible with bold climate action. We believe that as well, and we think that the greenhouse gas emission profile of natural gas, in addition to its affordability, really makes it a central piece of the puzzle for, affordability and sustainability in our energy system. At a very high level and sort of rough percentage numbers, the emissions profile, the greenhouse gas emission profile of natural gas, about 30% lower than fuel oil, which is the way that a plurality of homes and businesses in New Hampshire get their heat is oil. And so being able to convert customers from fuel oil to conventional natural gas is already a big boost. Natural gas is also cleaner than propane, incrementally so, but the big difference with propane is propane is delivered by truck, which has its own emissions and safety profile, and whereas natural gas is the safest energy, the safest fuel that we have, and because it's delivered in underground pipelines, which we work really diligently to maintain and ensure that that they're safe. So the emissions profile is really key, and we certainly hear a lot about the electrification of building heat, and there's definitely a role for that. There is really great technology out there, especially air source heat pumps, which are able to really add efficiency to electric heat. But what we do know from a cost standpoint, you see here these illustrative numbers about the sort of percentage difference per unit of energy across the different pathways for thermal energy. Natural gas is the clear winner on affordability. It's also the clear winner on emissions, including compared to air source heat pumps. And the reason for that really is, electricity to run an air source heat pump is generated primarily in New England by burning natural gas at an efficiency, a heat rate of somewhere in the 30 to 40% range, whereas natural gas is delivered directly to end-use customers for thermal energy and building heat or industrial process needs. The very lowest end of efficiency, sort of the lowest efficiency, oldest appliances would be 80% or so, and the new appliances can reach efficiencies 98, 99%. So you're really taking all of that energy, potential energy in the fuel, and converting it into heat if you do that. So we definitely recognize that there's a role for air source heat pumps, especially for decarbonizing the building heat sector where natural gas is not available. Again, we were very pleased to see that the consumer advocate, Mr. Crease, wrote again last year that in the first instance, air source heat pumps, in terms of policies that ought to be developed around this, ought to be targeted at converting customers who have oil or propane but don't have access to utility natural gas. So that's really where that policy situation is at the moment in terms of the efficacy of air source heat pumps as a decarbonization solution. And really what we as a company at Liberty, and I believe Unitil is really also focused on this, what we're focusing on is decarbonization of the gas distribution system through clean fuel. And that takes two forms, really: renewable natural gas, which can be produced from landfills. We have a landfill RNG project that we're proposing now here in New Hampshire at the Bethlehem landfill that's owned by Casella. And there are other pathways as well, in particular, turning woody biomass into methane through a process called gasification, which is really attractive and technically, available and ready to go technology that could potentially support our forest products industry now that the wood burning power plants in New Hampshire are no longer operational. So there are obviously benefits for emissions reduction of increasing forestry and producing, meaning planting more trees and cutting more trees to make stuff out of it. That is the most basic type of carbon sequestration. And so we definitely think that the future of RNG production in northern New England is a bright one, and we're actively exploring those potential pathways now. But in the long run, out to 2050 is, sort of a really broad goal that many policymakers are aiming for, of reducing emissions to net zero by 2050. that we expect, and most in the industry expect, that green hydrogen is going to be really central to that. The technology is available today. It's simply electrolysis using clean electricity. It's really no more complicated at a high level than you run a current through water to split apart the H from the O in water, and you produce hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen can be blended into existing natural gas systems up to a percentage without changing over any sort of components on the customer or the distribution company end. And also 100% hydrogen thermal energy systems are being developed around the world right now, and particularly in Europe. That is the preferred pathway for building heat and industrial process heat, and the sort of last mile of decarbonization for sectors like heavy lift transportation and industrial process, which really can't be electrified. So in places like northern New England, where the weather is really cold, the housing stock is really old, especially in areas that are urban, it's really the kind of thing that we expect the decarbonization through RNG and hydrogen to be both the lowest cost and, again, the lowest emission solution for decarbonizing these sectors. So we're very excited about that. We're continuing to develop actual proposals and policy frameworks to decarbonize this system, while at the same time continuing to make sure that the customers who want this really low cost and clean conventional commodity are able to do so. So with that, I will we'll move on, and hopefully if anybody has any questions about those topics, you'll feel free to reach out to me at this info that we're putting in front of you right now. And I know everybody else here would also be more than happy to field your inquiries. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. We can't wait to work with all of you through the rest of the session. Thanks.
Thanks to all of you from all the utilities for that excellent presentation. I see we do have at least one question. Representative Somcich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick comment for Donna Gamache and a question. First of all, I want to congratulate Eversource for being awarded one of the best utilities for energy efficiency. And secondly, I'd like to ask her a little bit to explain Eversource's goal of carbon neutrality by 2030. That's only 19 years from now. That's a pretty short period of time. What are your plans to do that?
Well, I wish I could answer that exactly, because the person who did that for us spent 3 years of her life pulling it together. How about if I promise getting you something in writing from her and how we're gonna meet it?
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions for our panelists here this afternoon? Okay, Representative Partial.
Yes, will this PowerPoint be available to us at a later date?
I think we should, yes, maybe we could send it to the committee email address so that you would all receive it then. I'm happy to make sure that you all get it.
Thank you. And thank you, Chair.
The PUC has already sent their slide deck to the members of the committee. And so you'll have all the information, a summary of all the information you've seen here today in your inbox very, very shortly, if it's not already there. Any additional questions? Seeing none, I would like to remind everybody that a week from today, we will begin our work in earnest. We'll have our first series of public hearings. We start at 9 o'clock in the morning. We plan to run all day long until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We have scheduled 6 public hearings. We will likely hold 1 or more executive sessions during the day. As I previously indicated, we have been instructed to retain all committee and commission bills for this session year, because putting together a committee and holding committee meetings is difficult right now with our space limitations in the Legislative Office Building and the State House. So we're being asked to put those bills on hold. So we very likely will have executive sessions to vote to retain several bills at our session next Friday. I also want to remind everyone that in order to vote at an executive session, you need to make arrangements to have video available, because myself as the chair needs to be assured that the person casting the vote is who they say they are. And so I need to be able to see your vote, your face, and I will need a video representation, or you could come to the meeting in person and vote that way. But otherwise, no telephone voting will be allowed for exec sessions, and that's per the Speaker of the House. So if there are any questions, I see there are a couple. Let's move to those. Representative McGee. Don't forget to unmute Representative McGee.
Sorry. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. What you just mentioned about the meeting in person, is there going to be anyone physically there to run the meeting in person, or are you planning to be remote? I'm just curious because I'm wondering if people are going to head there and then there won't really be any infrastructure in the room. I'm just curious.
The answer to that question is they are setting up a room for us, and some people will be there live. I can't tell you how many, I have no idea. But some people will choose to be there in person to conduct the meeting. Others will choose to Zoom in, as we're doing here with this meeting. That's your choice. Everybody should be free to make the choice that suits their situation the best. Right now, my plan is to be there in person. And I know a few other representatives who also plan to be there in person, but like I said, it's your choice. Did that answer your question?
It does, but the other thing I'm curious about is if you're there physically in person, are you still going to have the technology so that we're all in one place?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand how the hybrid is going to work. I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yes, those of us who are there live will also be on camera. And we will also be able to see everybody else who is in the meeting via video. So do I know exactly how it's going to work? No, because next Friday will be our first shot at trying it. But that's the plan. I guess there are a couple of committees that will be meeting earlier in the week, next week. They'll be using this technology and this system, and we'll find out.
Yeah.
Does it really work or does it not? You know. Representative Somsich, I believe you are next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to kind of remind you that you were going to give us an opportunity to have all the members introduce themselves to each other. We really haven't done that. So at some point where you can make some time to do that, that would be appreciated.
Thank you for that reminder. I suppose we could try it right before we conclude this meeting. Let me get to Representative Oxenham for a question, and then maybe we could move to introductions after that.
I'm most unhappy about the directive that we're not going to have any committees or commissions. I simply don't understand why we can't use the format that we're using right now to accomplish really important work during the period June to December. I have several bills which now are just going to be removed from consideration. I would like direction as to whether it's worth my while to present written testimony for a bill that I'm now told is not actually going to be considered. So, and I don't see why we've scheduled them for an hour. I'm throwing up my hands and asking for a little bit more direction, please, from the chair.
Okay, well, the reason I scheduled them for an hour is so that we can introduce the bill allow some minimal testimony on it just to get a sense of the bill, and then maybe recess the public hearing, go into executive session, and vote to retain the bill. And I suspect that it'll take pretty much an hour to do all that, especially with the hybrid format. As far as your written testimony is concerned, you'll get a chance to submit that when we take the bill up in the fall. Because in the fall, we have to take up our retained bills and decide what to do with them before the House deadline for that, which I think is sometime around the 1st of December, the end of November, somewhere around there. You can look in the calendar and see when that is. But that will be the time to put forth all the testimony and the evidence that you want to submit to support the passage of the bill. Does that make sense?
Thank you very much for that clarification. And I appreciate the notion that we actually might be able to do something in the fall. Thank you.
I think it's more than that we might be able to do something. I think we'll be compelled to do something in the fall. So Representative Callie Pitts. Don't forget to unmute.
We're in person. Is the room going to be set up for every representative? Will there be a mask requirement? And has parking been determined?
Yes, to all three of those. The room will be set up to accommodate all members of the committee. It's a double room. It's my understanding that there will be plexiglass placed between the places that members would sit, so that in addition to being at least 6 feet apart from each other, there will also be a barrier between you and the member to your left or to your right. Masks will be required anytime you are moving. So if you get up and go out into the hallway to go to the restroom or whatever, you have to wear a mask. Once you are seated at your seat at the table in the LOB hearing room, you will be allowed to take off your mask. But once you get up and move around again, you have to put it on.
And the rest of my question was, has parking been determined yet?
Yes, there was a notice in the calendar yesterday that said parking information will be distributed this week.
This week. Thank you.
Or this coming week, yeah. Representative Somsich.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify the issue with committees and study committees, is this a uniform decision that all bills that are requiring a commission or study, regardless of where they come from, will all be handled the same way?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And basically the reason for it is because the president of the Senate, Chuck Morse, has told us that any study committee bills that gets passed out of the House will be killed by the Senate.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
If we want it to survive, we have to retain it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Representative Notter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We may be rethinking the plexiglass because some information came in that it may cause, the germs to just stick to it, and we'll be breathing it in, and it might not be as healthy as we originally thought. So that's not a guarantee. That was what we talked about on Monday at a meeting. But then we were all supposed to be meeting on Friday or Monday, and that got moved to Friday. So things have changed. But that's what I know.
So the situation is fluid. We know that. So thank you for that fresh information, which I had not yet heard. So members should be aware of the fact that there may not be plexiglass after all, even though that we were told that that would happen earlier. Looks like that may no longer be the case. So be aware of that. as you weigh the pros and cons of appearing in person versus via Zoom. Representative Oxenham, did you have another question?
Yes, I did. Thank you. I understand that you will and Representative Harrington will be speaking before the OCA's Ratepayer Advisory Committee on Monday. Yeah, could you share anything with us about that?
I'll just share with you that the consumer advocate invited us to appear, and we both said yes.
No notion of about what?
They asked us to make a short presentation about why we signed the letter asking for a suspension of the docket regarding the energy efficiency resource standard.
Oh, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see no further questions. So let's try to get to know each other a little bit. Let's do some intros. Oh, now I see Representative Callie Pitts has her hand up.
I don't. It's a mistake.
Oh, okay.
Trying to get it down.
In that case, I'm going to start with you. Introduce yourself to the committee.
I can't get my hand down. It's stuck. My name is Representative Jackie Callie Pitts. I represent Portsmouth, wards 1, 2, 4, and 5. I've been on this particular committee for 23 years, so I've seen a lot, been a lot, heard a lot, done a lot. And that's about it.
Thank you, Representative Callie Pitts. I will go next. I'm Representative Michael Vose, and I represent District 9 in Rockingham County, which is the town of Epping. I'm starting my 4th term in the legislature, and I've served on the Science, Technology, and Energy Committee all 3 of my previous terms. And I'm looking forward to what I think will be an exciting year for all of us. Next on the list is Representative Pimentel.
Hi, my name is Rod Pimentel. I'm a retired Marine, not retired, an ex-Marine. I did my term back during the Vietnam era and got a BS in life science at the UNH and have been in the plumbing trade for the last 40 years. The last 17 years was as an HVAC systems designer and currently retired, have a wife, Iris, and 3 kids and 5 grandkids. One thing is that I was in the EDNA the last term. This is my 2nd term, and we had a lot of acronyms that we had to learn. STE has them beat hands down. And if there's anyone out there who has their little lists of acronyms on a PDF or Word document and would like to email them to me, I would greatly appreciate it. So thank you very much. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you and welcome to the committee. I can guarantee you that a publication of acronyms that we use in this committee would be the size of a book. It's the way it is. Okay, next, Representative Oxenham.
Okay, I'm also starting my 4th term. I was 1 term on RR&D, and since then I've been on STE. I guess my science highlights, I was for about 10 years at the National Academy of Sciences. When I concluded my career there, I was a study director. I'm basically an economic policy analyst. I've been an environmentalist since the 1960s and was present in New York City at the first Earth Day. I think that's probably enough to be going on with.
And who do you represent?
Oh, worth knowing, yes. Sullivan County District 1. I'm in Plainfield, which is a little town very close to Lebanon. on the Connecticut River.
Thank you. Next is Representative Jose Cambri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jose Cambrils. I'm from Merrimack County, District 9, representing Canterbury and Loudoun. I'm a retired executive engineer from BAE Systems, and I'm just so happy to be on this committee. It looks like it's loaded with a lot of wonderful people, and thank you.
Thank you and welcome aboard. Next, let's move to Representative Jacqueline Grecian.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Grecian. You can call me Jackie. I represent Manchester wards 1, 2, and 3. This is my second term in the legislature. Last year I was on Environment and Agriculture Committee. My background is in the biosciences. I have a PhD in molecular and cell biology, and I work at a company that helps researchers get their work published. So I edit science papers all day long in a variety of fields, mostly biology, but some more relevant to this committee.
So you're not intimidated by acronyms, are you?
I love acronyms. The wackier, the better. Yeah.
Well, welcome aboard. Next is Representative McGee.
Thank you. Yes, I represent Hillsborough 27, which is Hollis, New Hampshire, down on the border. And this is my second term on science, technology, and energy. My professional background is I have a master's in psychology, which I got many, many years ago, which helped me in business. I moved into technology just at the right time for someone my age, or I would have missed the boat completely. And I ended up being a program manager in a software engineering firm for e-learning. So I have a technology background, and I've learned that technology is something that's, you know, in scarce supply, even in the state bureaucracy. So I feel like it's kind of a good fit that I'm here at this time and that I have that ability to sort of cross over these worlds. And I really enjoy this committee. So I'm excited to be back with all of you and to see our new members and welcome them. So I guess that's probably all I need to say about me. Oh, there's only one thing I wanted to say is I hope when we do our roll calls that we can get faster at it because, you know, I think we can probably get through it faster, especially where our meeting days are going to be so long. So just wanted to say that.
Okay, thank you very much.
You forgot to mention your singing career.
That's true. Yeah, I sang for 30 years. Don't sing anymore. Oh, and I have 4 grown children, 9 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Never stop singing. Okay. Next is Representative Tom Lozaz.
Hello, I'm Tom Ploche. I'm married, 4 kids, 3 grandkids. Been in EMS for 40 years. Did a 15 years with union worker as General Motors. Then another 15 years in chemistry analytical. I'm your hands-on technician making the numbers for everyone. Let's see. Grew up in a farming area. Right now, as of last week, I'm just down to chickens. I think I'm going to stay there for now. So this is a freshman, and I represent Belknap 1, which is Center Harbor and New Hampton. Thank you.
Okay, welcome to the committee. Next is Representative J.D. Bernardi.
Yes, good afternoon, folks. J.D. Bernardi from Southampton, representing Rockingham 16, which is Southampton, East Kingston, and Kensington. I have an undergraduate degree in biochemistry, was in the Navy nuclear submarine program for 5 years and another 21 in the reserves. I went to Franklin Pierce Law School after my active Navy service, and then joined New England Nuclear Corporation and got into the pharmaceutical business. Been in pharmaceutical development for 38 years, and now I'm just a consultant and have joined your august company.
Okay, welcome to ST&E. Next is Representative Partial.
Yes, I am Lucius Partial. I represent Marlborough and Troy, and this is my first term. Prior to this, I've been a music educator in New Hampshire Public Schools for 20 years. And before that, I worked in arts administration, working with public radio and symphonies. I did an arts colony. I have a Bachelor of Music from Ithaca College and an MBA from SUNY Binghamton. And I've had a few interesting jobs, which I talk about some other time. And let's see. And I'm just delighted to be on this. I've been a lifelong advocacy of trying to reduce my own carbon footprint. So this is a personal interest of mine. Thank you.
Well, welcome. Next, we'll turn to Representative Nick White.
Hi, everyone. I am Nick White. I am married. I represent Pembroke and Chichester. That's Merrimack County, District 20. I am, by day, I am a solution architect for a software company that focuses on IoT and connected products. And I also have a variety of small business startups that I'm in the process of kind of spinning up, including cleaning business, hop farming, bunch of other random things. And I'm excited to be here. And up until this last year, I've been primarily a network engineer in telecommunications and wireless technology.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you on board. Next is Representative Peter Somcich.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Peter Somcich. I represent District 27 in Portsmouth. This will be my third term in the legislature. I was born in Budapest, Hungary, and during the 1956 Hungarian uprising, my parents left the country and came to America when I was 6, becoming citizens. But subsequently, after my father passed away in the US, we moved back to Europe, to Germany. I got some of my education in the US and most of it in Germany, and it culminated in a PhD for physics in the University of Heidelberg. But then I got hired by a European company to come to New Hampshire, to Hudson, and subsequently worked for Sylvania Lighting for 34 years as a material scientist. And one of my free time activities has been as a caseworker for Amnesty International for 30 years, taking care of political prisoners. So I'm glad to be here, and it seems like we have a very stellar group of people with good credentials. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Somcich. Next is Representative Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm John Mann. I represent 3 small towns on the West Coast, Alstead, Marlow, and Surrey, Cheshire District 2. I have some experience and some successes in the energy efficiency area, and I'm interested in that. I had spent about 4 years in the Navy after graduating from college. Seemed to be sailing all over the place. I was a math teacher after that in high school level, and I spent maybe 6 or 8 years combined in IBM and digital, including writing some software that for IBM that ended up being a product, for Pete's sakes. So that's, and I'm old. That's it for me.
The Dean of the Committee. Welcome, John. Good to see you again. Next is Representative Lex Berezhny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I represent Grafton District 9, and this is my first term. I was born in Ukraine and immigrated to the United States when I was about 7. My profession is software development, which I've done for about 20 years. I'm also a volunteer firefighter, and I look forward to serving on this committee. Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
I just realized that. Welcome, thanks. We're glad to have you here. Next is Representative Ken Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm Kenneth Vincent. I represent District 17, which is 5 and 6 in Dover, and Wards 2 in Somersworth. I'm starting my third term. I was a full-time firefighter slash lieutenant and the chief fire investigator for the city of Somersworth for 33 years. And I need to tell you, when I came to this committee, I picked this committee because I wanted something different than what I was normally doing. And every one of these people that you're looking at intimidated me. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a physicist. I'm not up there. But what I am is a guy who understands things and common sense and saved lives for a while. Other than that, I'm married. I have 5 grandchildren and 2 children, or 5 children and 5 grandchildren. And I'm pretty happy with this committee. And I want to wish all of you a lot of good luck, because this, especially the freshmen, because there's a lot to learn in this. And I hardly know anything, but I know enough to be dangerous. Thanks a lot for listening to me, and good luck to all of you. Don't be intimidated.
Thank you, Mr. Dangerous, and welcome again to the committee. Representative Janine Notter.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janine. This is my 6th term, my 4th term on STE. I'm the House Majority Whip this term. My husband and I and our kids moved here in '98. We have 6 grown kids and grandbaby on the way. She'll be here in April. And this came in the mail today while we were having our meeting, this little pink little thing. Before politics, I spent 10 years in the world of fitness. I'm a long distance runner, so as soon as we're done here, I'm heading out to the streets with my dog and run around the block several times. And I look forward to working with all of you and intimidating my former seatmate, Representative Vincent.
Welcome back to the committee, Janine. Great to see you. Representative Douglas Thomas.
Yes, hi. I go by Doug, and I'm on my 4th term, as is Chairman Vose, all of them with the Science and Tech Committee. I'm a graduate of Hanover High School, BS in Plastics Technology out of Lowell Tech, MBA out of Montana University, Air Force and Air Guard retiree and veteran, and spent the most of my civilian work at Hanscom Air Force Base as an acquisition logistician and program manager. And I'm glad to be on this committee again. I'm glad to see we have a lot of people. We do have, I believe, one of the most stellar and technically knowledgeable people on a committee since I've been on it. And I'm looking forward to good and robust discussion. Oh, and I represent Rockingham 5 Londonderry.
Thank you, Representative Thomas. Next is Representative Rebecca McWilliams.
Thank you, Chair Vose. My name is Rebecca McWilliams. This is my daughter, Victoria Sarah, also known as Tori. She's 3 months old, so she may be joining us for some of these hearings that we have coming up, because I am working from home with her kind of on and off during this crazy COVID time. I represent the west side of Concord, Merrimack 27. I'm actually a mom of 3. I also have 3-year-old twins, but they're usually in daycare. As a profession, I am a licensed architect and licensed attorney. I split my time about 75-25 attorney architect. I'm self-employed, which is how I'm able to make this work. And I do have quite a bit of involvement with startups. So I would love to chat with I'm sorry, I've lost your photo, but the representative who does startups, I'd love to chat about that. And my youngest brother is also a Navy nuke, so something else in common here. I'm very excited to be back for my second term on ST&E. I think you guys are a great group. I'm looking forward to working with you.
Thank you, Representative McWilliams. You'll want to speak with Representative Nick White about startup activity. Next, we'll touch base with Representative Susan Homola.
Hi, I'm Sue Homola. I represent Hollis here at Hillsborough District 27 alongside Cap McGee. I've actually been in the Air Force. I spent time as an Air Force meteorologist and 20 plus years as a military spouse. I currently work in the field of hazard mitigation planning. I actually work with Department of Emergency Management writing FEMA hazard mitigation plans. So like the person who spends all their time editing documents, that's what I do all day actually. And I have 4 children, and I'm very happy to be meeting all your acquaintances and getting the opportunity to learn a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Homola.
I might add, Mr. Chair, if I may, effective today, I just got the notice that Representative Homola is officially assigned to the ST&E, at least until Representative Plett can be fully employed back on our committee.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much, Representative Thomas. And welcome, Representative Homola. And last but not least, we have Representative Michael Harrington. I hope you can get fired up there, Michael, and introduce yourself. *6 to unmute. Jen, do you have to do anything to unmute Representative Harrington?
I'm not sure if Representative Harrington is connected by telephone anymore. He had been connected by computer to watch you guys and connected by phone to participate. And I no longer see his telephone connection.
Oh, okay. Okay. All righty. Well, then that.
You have to hold up that baby. Can't see her.
Was there anyone else on the call that I missed as far as an introduction is concerned? I think I got everybody. Okay. Well, let's call it a day. We've run over our time by about a half an hour. Apparently Zoom didn't cut us off, so we can be thankful for that. And I will look forward to seeing everybody a week from today at 9 o'clock sharp. And thank you very much for your participation today, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you so much.